Chapter 223. What is she making a fuss about? Which one of the brothers is responsible? Madame Luo's eyebrows didn't even twitch. Jingwan held Madame Luo's arm. Grandmother, who do you think's second aunt wants to be responsible? Madame Luo sneered and didn't answer Jingwan's question. Obviously, she knew what was going on. Compared to Luo Jingming, Luo Jingbo was the son of the first wife and pioneered a new way of painting. Now, meticulous brushwork was slowly becoming more popular and more popular. It was almost certain that he would become a master of his generation. Although he married a wife, her face was disfigured and her dowry was very generous. The latter was the son of a concubine and his father was bedridden. He was currently studying in the Imperial College and had the title of a scholar. In comparison, his advantage should be that he was single. There was a saying, "It's better to be a poor woman than an emperor's concubine." However, in reality, how many women had such willpower and feelings? Luo Jingbo and Luo Jingming were far from the difference between an emperor and a commoner. The biggest difference between them was nothing more than fame, future, and wealth. However, these were already enough. Many people pursued these for their entire lives. There were still people who believed that Luo Jingbo wouldn't like Sun Yijia. Most people believed that a girl's face was everything. If her face was disfigured, her everything would be ruined. At the same time, they also believed that men only cared about a girl's face. How ridiculous! The relevant people had already gathered in the second branch's main courtyard, Plum Residence. When Jingwan and Madame Luo arrived, the second aunt of the Luo family was sitting arrogantly on the main seat. It was as if she was the owner of this place and was showing off her powerful presence to others. As for the others, they didn't look very good, especially Luo Jingming. His hair was still wet. If she remembered correctly, he should have changed his clothes. His face was a little pale, but there was an abnormal flush on his cheeks. It seemed that the effects of the medicine he had taken had not dissipated. She didn't know if he had been splashed with water or if he had swum in the water himself. When he saw Madame Luo, his aura weakened slightly. He stood up unwillingly and bowed with the others. Madame Luo's expression was indifferent. After she sat down, she asked, "What exactly do you want?" Second Miss Luo's breathing stagnated, as if she had suffered a great blow. "Mother, what are you saying? Your granddaughter has been bullied to this extent, and you're asking me what I want to do? What do I want to do? What can I do? I just want to seek justice for my pitiful daughter." Then, he clenched his teeth and put on an extremely aggrieved look. "Justice? What kind of justice do you want?" Madame Luo's face was cold. Jingbo hurt her face. How can she get married in the future? "Don't tell me we're just going to let it go like this?" The Luo family's second grandaunt's voice was somewhat sharp. Luo Jingbo's face was gloomy. At this time, he even wanted to disregard his status and beat her up. He was usually a free and easy person. Even though he had matured a lot after getting married, his nature was still somewhat casual. Now, it could be seen that he was furious, but in the end, he held it in. "Then why don't you tell me why Jingbo would hurt someone?" When Madame Luo asked this question, the Luo family's second grandaunt's face was full of resentment. She suddenly looked at Luo Jingming with a gaze that looked as if she wanted to eat him up. "You'll have to ask my good nephew about this. He's so black-hearted that he actually schemed against his own cousin." Ling Shan's innocence was almost ruined by him. At this time, Luo Jingming was feeling terrible. It was probably because of his family background. Among the three oldest brothers, he was the most reserved. However, as the saying goes, even a person made of mud had a temper. He had suffered an unexpected calamity and was even blamed for it. Naturally, his mood was not good. He glanced coldly at the Luo family's second grandaunt. "Is Chang Lingshan an outstanding beauty, or is your Zhang family's high status worthy of him coveting her? Don't flatter yourself." In reality, even though Luo Jingming was the son of a concubine, his upbringing was not bad at all. His future might not be as good as Luo Jingbo's, but as long as he steadily walked down the path, his future would definitely not be bad. In addition, the Luo family's current momentum was great. There were too many people who wanted to form an alliance through marriage. However, the children of the Luo family who were not of age would directly reject marriage. Luo Jingming was very popular. The fact that he was the son of a concubine might have some impact, but he was personally taught by Luo Peishan just like the other two brothers. That little flaw was not enough to make a difference. Moreover, don't forget about those who had secretly pledged their allegiance to Jin Qin Wang. Their daughters could not enter Jin Qin Wang Fu. If they wanted to have a closer relationship with him, they would naturally have to slow down their efforts. The other princes would definitely not be able to do so. Jin Wangfei's maternal family was the best candidate. Thus, not to mention Luo Jingming, there was no need to worry about anyone else. Luo Jingming's marriage had long been put on the agenda. Now, they had basically circled a few families and were only doing the final selection. Everyone's upbringing, talent, appearance, family background, and character all surpassed that of Chang Lingshan. Only water would enter his brain to plot against Chang Lingshan. Old Madame Luo also pointed out all these without any trace of politeness. Second eldest Miss Luo's face stiffened. Then, tears streamed down her face. "Mother, I'm not your biological daughter. You really don't like me. My marriage is not as good as eldest sisters and third sisters, so be it. Now, Lingshan is also..." "Enough. The children are here. I don't want to peel off your face." Second eldest Miss Luo's lips trembled, but she didn't dare to say anything else. Jingwan felt that it was strange. Although this second aunt was born of a concubine, she was raised by her grandmother. Everyone said that she and her grandmother were no different from biological mother and daughter. When she was in Qi'an Prefecture, Jingwan had heard about it from her grandmother's servants. Indeed, she wasn't considered bad. However, Jingwan could roughly sense that she wasn't particularly good. At least, she couldn't compare to her other two aunts. Jingwan believed in her grandmother's character. Once she accepted her grandmother, she probably wouldn't treat her differently. Now, it seemed that she didn't just dislike her. This second aunt must have done something to anger her grandmother and made her hate her. In fact, although second aunt's in-laws weren't as good as the other two sisters, second uncle's character was very good. Back then, they were both chosen by Luo Peishan. At that time, he was far from the position he was in today. Don't think that you're the only smart ones who treat the world as fools. You and your daughter's hearts are full of twists and turns, yet you dare to play around in front of me. If you wanted Jingming to marry Chang Lingshan, I would reluctantly look up to you. It's been almost 20 years and you still haven't changed. A good child was taught to be like this by you. Take Chang Lingshan and immediately get out of the Luo family. Remember this, even if she loses her innocence today, she can forget about entering the Luo family." Second eldest Miss Luo looked at old Madame Luo in disbelief. "Mother, you're actually so heartless? Indiscriminately convicting Lingshan, how could you? Old Madame Luo only looked at her indifferently, as if she was looking at a stranger. She was probably really hurt by old Madame Luo's words. Her face broke down. "Mother, Luo Romping and I are both born of a concubine. You even treat his concubine son well, but you treat my legitimate daughter like this. Now get out of here obediently. The Luo family is still your maternal family, otherwise..." Second eldest Miss Luo's face was green and white, like a color palette. "You're actually so heartless. Fine, I'll leave. She wiped away her tears, as if her heart was completely broken, revealing a sense of despair. Jingwan sighed. Sure enough, everyone was a king of acting. They were clearly afraid of grandmother's threat, afraid that they would really lose the Luo family, but they seemed to be sad and desperate because of grandmother's heartlessness. However, Jingwan looked at grandmother's eye with a little admiration. She was really domineering and mighty. Second eldest Miss Luo took the injured Chang Lingshan and left. Before leaving, she kept crying and making a fuss. In the end, she was directly slapped twice by her mother, scolding her for being a slut with a cheap life and for not being reincarnated into a good family. She deserved to end up like this today. Everyone knew that she was scolding Chang Lingshan for everyone present to hear. However, old Madame Luo was completely indifferent, so she had no choice but to leave. No matter how resentful and unwilling she was in her heart, she had to bow her head in front of power. Chang Lingshan was also a little pitiful. A large part of his brow bone was bandaged, and the specific injury could not be seen. The area that was not covered was also red and swollen. As a result, there were 2 more palm prints on his face. However, this pitiful person must have something hateful. If she did not have any evil thoughts, this would not have happened. After sending them away, old Madame Luo stood up. There are still so many guests in the residence. Go do what you need to do. You 2 brothers should properly reflect on today's matter. Both of you are so stupid. After Jing Wan and old Madame Luo left, the remaining few people were still a little stunned. Was it over just like that? Luo Jinghua and Luo Jingming looked at each other. Indeed, they had both made stupid mistakes today. Luo Jingming had been easily tricked, and Luo Jinghua was even more stupid. He did not have to involve himself at all. Other than letting Chang Lingshan get involved with him, it did not have any effect on the original matter at all. However, even if they were scolded for being stupid, they still admired their grandmother. She had resolved the matter so cleanly. They originally thought that it would be very troublesome, and they might really let a disgusting person into the family. Jing Wan also had similar thoughts. She originally thought that it would be a tough battle and wanted to see if she could help a little. She just watched a show for free. She even left her sister-in-law with her biological grandmother in advance, worried that it would affect her. In the end, all her worries were in vain. However, old Madame Luo's words and deeds also told us that relatives were not easy to trick. Relatives were not easy to be ruthless, but it was also easier to be ruthless. There were some things that outsiders might have some misgivings about, such as today's matter. If it was someone else, old Madame Luo probably would not have handled it so simply and crudely. What is Wan thinking about? The matter just now, the result was expected, this process. Old Madame Luo laughed in spite of herself. Grandmother will tell you one thing today. When you can borrow power, don't be polite. When you can hold others, don't be soft-hearted, and even more so, don't be soft-hearted. Even if it was a former relative, when you want to control him, it already shows that he is not worth your effort. Therefore, there is no need to be polite. Jin Qinhuang is a good banner. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653309. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com Mobile Edition Reading Website. Bicken.com. Chapter 224. How did it become Jin Qinhuang in the blink of an eye? Well, Jingwan also admitted that Jin Qinhuang's banner was very useful. She should be very happy to use it for herself. Grandmother was right, when needed, it would be a waste not to use it. When they returned to Shi Yuan, Sun Yijia sat next to her grandmother. She was a little restless and frequently looked in the direction of the back stairs. The drama on the stage, let alone seriously watching, she was afraid that she didn't even listen to a single word. Seeing Jingwan and old Madame Luo appear, she stood up and walked over quickly. Grandmother Wan Mimi. Old Madame Luo nodded and walked away. Jingwan also knew that she was anxious, so she simply whispered in her ear. Sun Yijia's eyes slightly widened, the corners of her mouth slightly hooked up. Grandmother is amazing. Jingwan smiled but didn't say anything. She also thought so. The people here were all shrewd people. When old Madame Luo left, old Madame Sun sent someone to call Sun Yijia to her side. She sensed that something might have happened in the Luo family. But now that she was smiling so happily, it probably wasn't a big problem. After a glance, she no longer paid attention. Which family would be fine? In the entire capital, it wasn't like there weren't any families that were in turmoil every day. Jingwan helped Sun Yijia settle down and began to shuttle between the ladies with ease. One pulled her to say a few words, another pulled her to praise a few words. Although she could completely handle it, her face was stiff from smiling. It wasn't a smile of genuine joy. It wasn't just her face that was tired, it was also her heart. Jingwan felt that those people who were born with a smiling face would be a great weapon in this kind of situation. But that kind of person, in a sad situation, would be easily pointed out by everyone, so it was better not to be envious. Fortunately, when Jingwan felt that she couldn't hold on anymore, the banquet finally started. Similarly, many officials also came to the Luo family after leaving the yamen. After a round of toasting, although there were still a lot of things left on the table, especially the women's banquet in the back courtyard, it could be considered that the host and guests enjoyed themselves to the fullest. Except for a few small flaws, everything else could be said to be perfect. After the guests left one after another, Zhou Yingshuang, who was the guest of honor, and several other attendants helped to send the guests off. She also brought Yuan Qiao with her, intentionally or unintentionally. Of course, there was also her younger sister, Luo Jingyu, whom outsiders thought was completely beneath Jingwan's notice. Jingwan thought that Luo Jingyu's temperament was a little timid and dull, so she thought that after Sun Yijia married into the family, she would ask her, the eldest sister-in-law of the second branch, to help train her. Sun Yijia didn't spend much time with Luo Jingyu. Most of the time, Luo Jingyu was taught by Sun Yijia's nanny. When the marriage discussion started next year, she probably wouldn't have to worry about in-laws. Concubine Ji was grateful to Jingwan because she knew that Jingwan didn't like concubines, so she never took the initiative to get close to her. Usually, she helped Zhang She manage the second branch. Now, she didn't want to have a son. She completely understood that as long as her two daughters weren't disliked by their D-sister, they wouldn't be bad in the future. Perhaps Third Miss didn't like the concubines' brothers and sisters, but she didn't like their status. She didn't have much dislike for them. As long as they didn't provoke her, she wouldn't do anything to them. When necessary, she would even help them. In order not to be a burden to her children, Concubine Ji became invisible in the Luo Rongyan. Concubine Ping, who gave birth to a son, had always followed Concubine Ji's lead in this aspect and was invisible in the entire second branch. When Great Elder Princess was about to leave, Wangzhu Yuyao made a fuss and refused to go back. Great Elder Princess indulged her and asked Jingwan to play with her for 2 days. Wangzhu Yuyao wasn't the youngest in Great Elder Princess's mansion, but she was the senior. Moreover, because her mother didn't like her sister-in-law, even if there were children who were 1 or 2 years younger than her, they couldn't play with her. Sometimes Yuyao was a little naughty. In fact, she didn't cause any harm, but she was regarded as a little devil by her nephews, nieces, and sisters-in-law. Yuyao curled her lips. She didn't want to talk to them. Great Elder Princess looked at the girls in front of her kindly and said, "You are all good girls. If you have a chance, come to Great Elder Princess's mansion with Jingwan and play with her." Great Elder Princess loved Jingwan, and she was also supporting them in a disguised way. The girls were a little flattered and hurriedly thanked her. Great Elder Princess also gave Jingwan a few words of advice. In the end, only the relatives and friends of the Luo family were left. Even old Madame Sun didn't stay for long. Today, she was the only one who came to the Luo family. The others in Ding General Manor were directly forbidden by her. According to her, she knew that Sun Yijia was very good in the Luo family, and this was enough. Jingwan's adulthood ceremony was so grand that some people would talk about it for a while. Among other things, as soon as Prince Rue and his wife returned to the prince's mansion, they were told by the servants that concubine Ying had a stomachache again. Princess Rue glanced at Prince Rue. Seeing that he didn't change his expression, she didn't say anything. Prince Rue didn't want to talk to her at first, but he seemed to think of something and asked, "Is she only a little younger than the third Miss Luo?" "It seems to be only a day younger," said Princess Rue. "A day? Only a day?" They were born under the same roof, have the same surname, and eat the same food. But one of them is in the sky, the moon surrounded by stars, while the other is in the ground, deserted by all. Prince Rue seemed to be talking to himself. Obviously, the bigger the gap between Luo Jingying and Jingwan, the more unwilling he was in his heart. She doesn't know that today is her third sister's adulthood ceremony. Send someone to tell her and let her be happy for her third sister. Happy? It was more like he would go crazy. No matter what, she's still pregnant. No matter what, it's still your child. Is your heart so heartless? Aren't you afraid that if you do this too many times, there won't be any more children in this family? Your Highness is right. I will ask someone to talk to concubine Ying. She must be regretful that she didn't see it with her own eyes. Telling her in detail may give her some comfort. Yes. This was what he was most satisfied with about Princess Rue. She could always think of his thoughts and be of one mind with him. No matter how gentle and polite Li Hongming was to others, he wasn't a broad-minded person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done this kind of thing. This was simply a method of jealousy in the inner house. You are a man who wants to control the world. Doing this kind of thing is really a bit despicable. However, Princess Rue didn't show it at all. She could roughly guess Li Hongming's mentality. Seeing how outstanding Luo Jingying was, compared to concubine Ying, he probably felt that he was cheated. Maybe he even thought that if it wasn't for Luo Jingying seducing him, it might be a different scene today. At the very least, he would lose his virginity before marriage. No matter what, he could still take her as a concubine and control the Luo family more than now. But he didn't think about it. If he didn't take the girl's body and Luo Jingshu was determined not to have anything to do with him, would she let her granddaughter be his concubine? The most innocent was still the child. Its mother was regarded as lowly and unscrupulous by its shameless father. And such a father didn't care about its existence. To be reincarnated into such a child, it probably had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. There were many capable people by Princess Rue's side. She casually ordered one of her mamas. However, this nanny had a grudge against Luo Jingying. When Luo Jingying was favored, Luo Jingying had ruthlessly humiliated her. She had always been proud of herself in front of the princess consort. Humiliating Luo Jingying was akin to killing one's mother and stealing one's child, so she bore a grudge against Luo Jingying. During this period of time, she had secretly made trouble for Luo Jingying. However, Luo Jingying relied on the piece of meat in her belly and did not suffer too much. Now, she had an opportunity to openly humiliate Luo Jingying. She found someone who was eloquent and sarcastic. She briefly explained the situation and asked those people to tell concubine Ying in detail. That woman understood tacitly and accepted the benefits. She patted her chest and promised that she would be satisfied. She obviously didn't see it with her own eyes, but based on the basic things, she infinitely exaggerated and described it vividly, as if the scene was worthy of being crowned by the emperor. It was originally a story full of loopholes, but it was related to Luo Jingwan, her biggest enemy. Since birth, they were destined to be incompatible. Naturally, if Luo Jingwan wasn't good, she would be relieved. If Luo Jingwan was good, she would be struck by lightning. She would never have a coming-of-age ceremony in this lifetime, not to mention endless glory, being surrounded by countless people, being envied by countless people, and receiving a mountain of precious gifts. She could easily bully and humiliate herself. The person who held the power to kill her also praised her. She tried every means to get something that she couldn't get, but she carefully placed it in front of her. She even had to worry whether she liked it or not. Why? She roared, screamed, and questioned, but she would never get an answer. Luo Jingying, whose temper had been somewhat restrained, flew into a rage and smashed everything in the room. She didn't know that she was injured. Because of the anger in her heart, Luo Jingying only came back to her senses when she felt a wave of heat overflowing from her lower body. Luo Jingying's face turned pale. She hugged her stomach and cried out in pain. Blood quickly dyed her dress red. It wasn't the first time that the people who served her had seen her go crazy, and it wasn't the first time that she saw blood. However, that child had always been lucky. After taking 2 doses of miscarriage prevention medicine, it would be fine. It gave people the illusion that her pregnancy was stable and nothing would happen to her no matter what. But this time was different from before. With so much blood, that child was most likely. The group of people were scared out of their wits. As for the person who had angered Luo Jingying, he had been smug at first, but now his legs and stomach were trembling. He took advantage of the chaos to slip out, but his heart was beating extremely fast. It was over, it was all over. His mind was blank, and the only thing left was this thought. When Princess Ruei learned that Luo Jingying had asked for a doctor again, she didn't even lift her eyelids. It was expected. But this time, Princess Ruei didn't wait for long. The servant girl trembled and reported. Princess Ruei didn't wait for her to speak. Her heart thumped. She knew that this time it was probably not good. She hurried over. As soon as she stepped into the room, the servant who served her immediately knelt down. Princess Ruei only felt that her legs were a little weak, and her head was a little dizzy. The doctor came out and directly apologized to Princess Ruei. "I'm incompetent. Princess, please forgive me." Princess Ruei calmed down and rubbed her swollen and painful temples. "Where is Shiqiang?" "Princess, she's not well. She's unconscious." "Did the child fall out?" "Princess, the child is still in the belly." "Then quickly prescribe a dose of medicine to make the child fall out. Make sure that it's clean. Then take a good look at her. Don't leave a lasting illness that will affect her fertility in the future." "Yes." The doctor hurriedly wrote a prescription, filled the medicine, boiled the medicine, and then poured it down the throat of Luo Jingying, who was in a coma. Princess Ruei had been sitting outside the whole time. She didn't say anything about leaving, and she didn't ask the servant to leave. After the medicine was poured down the throat, she sent someone to inform Prince Ruei. Prince Ruei frowned, paused, and decided to take a look. As soon as Li Hongming walked to the door, he heard an old maid in the room say in a trembling voice, "Princess, the child is born." "It's a boy." Li Hongming staggered slightly and subconsciously clenched his fists. He thought that he wouldn't care about it, but the result was far from being as calm as he expected. Children were the inheritance of a man. Without children, it was equal to cutting off the family line. He had 2 legitimate daughters, and the others either died at birth or died in the belly. None of them was a boy. This was the first child confirmed to be a boy. If it was born safely, it would be his eldest son. It was okay when he didn't know, but now he knew. His heart was burning with pain. Seeing Prince Ruei come in with a gloomy face, Princess Ruei looked a little sad and said, "Your Highness, why is it gone?" His voice was frighteningly gloomy. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653310. HTML. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken.com. Bicken.com. Mobile version reading URL Bicken.com. Chapter 225. Princess Ruei would not stupidly go against him at this time. This man had a great tolerance for her. The premise was that she was sensible enough and smart enough to know what to do and what not to do. If she crossed the line, she would not have a good ending. Prince Ruei glanced at Princess Lu and directly grabbed a servant girl. The servant girl stammered and did not make it clear. As a result, Li Hongming directly ordered people to drag her out and beat her to death. Then the second servant girl was followed. The servant girl was afraid that she would end up like the first one, so she hurriedly spilled the beans. Li Hongming had realized that he was the cause. His face was so ugly that it was indescribable. But would he admit it? Absolutely not. He just asked people to tell Luo Jingying. That was all. Li Hongming glanced at Princess Lu sharply. Princess Lu twitched the corner of her mouth stiffly and said nothing. Li Hongming did not scold Princess Lu in the end. He just let it go. It was hard to get rid of the depression in his heart. I asked you to serve him, but you were lazy and didn't pay attention. Now that the child is dead, you should go down and continue to serve him. First, you should forgive him. Second, you should protect him from being bullied. Drag all of you out. Your Highness, please spare us. Your Highness. Was it useful to beg for mercy? Of course, it was useless. The guards beat them directly. They were not gentle at all. If they resisted and cried, the knives at their waists would hit their heads directly. Blood would immediately flow. Princess Lu slightly looked away. She did not want to see the bloody scene. Even if she had beaten servants to death and witnessed Jiang Wo's execution, she still could not adapt to such a scene. Would it be over after these people were beaten to death? There was still the culprit. As the most direct person to provoke Luo Jingying, the woman packed up her belongings and prepared to escape. However, when she finally found an opportunity to leave through the back door, she was caught just as she was about to step out of the door. Then, she was dragged to Li Hongming. At this time, her head was covered in blood. Before Li Hongming could ask anything, she had already confessed that she was the mastermind. Princess Lu took a deep breath. At this point, she knew what Prince Rue was trying to do. Everything would be fine as long as this woman died obediently. Princess Lu wished she could strangle her to death. She could do nothing about it. Princess Lu's mammy also clearly knew what she was going to face. She obediently walked out and knelt down. She directly said that she had a grudge against concubine Ying, so she took the opportunity to take revenge on her. She was willing to accept the punishment. Compared to the others, he was unusually calm. Li Hongming naturally wouldn't be courteous to someone who had offered himself up to appease his anger. He waved his hand and ordered his men to take him away. Your Highness. Princess Lu finally couldn't help but stand up and grab the mammy. She looked at Prince Rue with pleading eyes. However, Li Hongming's eyes were extremely cold and sharp. He was not moved at all. Princess Lu's body trembled slightly. She grabbed her mammy's clothes and refused to let go. Because she used too much strength, her fingertips turned white. The mammy gently but firmly pushed Princess Lu's hands away. The prince lost his son. Although it was him, she was the one who was aggravated. She was just a servant. How could she compare with the royal grandson? Now she only hoped that her family would not be implicated. However, she didn't dare to ask for mercy in person. But she believed that the princess would protect her family. I can't continue to serve you in the future. Princess, take care. Princess Lu couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Tears fell down, but she quickly wiped them away. She didn't look at Prince Rue, because once she did, she was afraid that she would show hatred in her eyes. This man was so cold and heartless. Li Hongming cleaned up the mess and left without looking back. He didn't even think of going in to see the woman who had just lost her child. The pain of losing his son seemed to have completely disappeared. Look, this was Prince Rue, who was highly praised by outsiders. In his eyes, there was only the high position. In fact, Princess Lu didn't know that the reason why Li Hongming was so angry was not only because of the child, but also because of Jing Wan and Li Hongyuan who embarrassed him. What was more, he was humiliated by Li Hongyuan's eyes. Except for her, there was no one else in the courtyard of Luo Jingying, including the person who was in charge of sweeping. The mess in the room had not been cleaned up. Princess Lu had a little sympathy for Luo Jingying before. After her mammy died, she was kind enough not to tear Luo Jingying apart. Anyway, the child was gone. From now on, she would not give Luo Jingying any protection. Yes, if Princess Lu secretly warned other people in the backyard, Luo Jingying would have had an abortion. Maybe she would have even lost her life. From now on, Luo Jingying could only fend for herself. However, didn't concubine Qi Ying love His Highness so much that she didn't care about anything else? However, His Highness revealed his true colors and beat her down to the ground. She survived and kept the child. Now, because she heard news about her cousin, she had an abortion. Should it be said that her love was too shallow, or that her ruthlessness towards her cousin was too deep? Princess Lu left with her people, and then casually arranged several people to serve Luo Jingying. When Luo Jingying woke up, there was only a strange little maid by the bed. But she was not in the mood to care about her for the time being. The first thing she did was to touch her belly. Her belly had been bulging. She had felt the movement in her belly. But it was gone. Her child was gone? Luo Jingying's expression was one of utter terror. From the moment she found out about the existence of the child, she didn't feel anything special. She only thought of it as a bargaining chip that could tie that man down and help her advance in her career. Later, she even thought of getting rid of the child because of Luo Jingwan's words. However, when she saw Prince Rui's heartlessness and hypocrisy, it could be said that she had nothing but the child in her womb. As the child grew up little by little and moved in her womb for the first time, she truly felt a different kind of emotion. It was indescribable, but her heart was filled with warmth, and she felt a sense of anticipation that she had never felt before. Now it was gone. Luo Jingying went crazy again. Regardless of her health, she broke the things that had just been put on the bed. The little maid originally wanted to stop her, but Luo Jingying was too scary in her eyes. She could only shrink in the corner for fear of hurting herself. The little maid, who had not been trained, did not have the consciousness of protecting her master loyally. There were several people outside, but they were obviously experienced. Hearing the noise in the room, they just stuck their heads out to take a look. Then they continued to eat melon seeds and chat leisurely. Their words were full of disdain for Luo Jingying. Princess Lu had no intention of suppressing everything that happened in this courtyard before. Therefore, the whole prince's mansion knew what should and should not know. This was also Princess Lu's clear attitude and position. Luo Jingying had lost her last trump card. She had no connections in the backyard of Prince Rui's mansion. No help, no help. She could only be trampled on. Many people were ready to have fun and watch a joke. Luo Jingying was in a bad physical condition now. Before she finished smashing, she felt dizzy and fell to the ground. There was little blood under her body again. The little maid who shrank in the corner came out cautiously. Concubine Ing. The little maid was just about to help her up when the people outside came in. A woman who looked a little mean hit the little maid with a broom. Hurry up and clean up the room. But what? Hurry up and clean up. She hit the little maid twice again. The little maid was scared. She did not care about Luo Jingying anymore. These people were so fierce. The adult woman squatted down and looked at Luo Jingying with a smile. Concubine Ing, you'd better take it easy if you want to smash things. The princess has said that if you smash things, there will be no more. You will have to wait until next month to get the quota. Today is only the 6th day of the new year. Luo Jingying might be a little stupid sometimes, but she was definitely smart now. She was very clear about her current situation. All the people who used to serve her were gone. They were either dead or sent to other places. She was completely alone. No, maybe she was alone from the beginning. There was no place for her in this prince's mansion. Concubine Ing, go back to bed. Luo Jingying said lightly. Oh, Concubine Ing, are you still putting on airs? The woman was very disdainful. She even patted her face humiliatingly. Luo Jingying was not hysterical now. She was indifferent as if there was nothing. I'm the aunt of the Minister of Personnel. The woman seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. Who in the prince's mansion doesn't know that you have a bad relationship with the Luo family? So what? My surname is Luo. As long as my surname is Luo, you lowly servants can't touch a single strand of my hair. I'm estranged from the Luo family. They don't want me, but they don't want the Luo family's face. You humiliate me, so to a certain extent, you humiliate the Luo family. Anyway, I have nothing now. Those who are barefooted are not afraid of those who wear shoes. I'll just hang myself. I want to see how the prince will explain it to the Luo family. Even if I die, there will be a group of people coming down to accompany me. Luo Jingying laughed sinisterly. It had to be said that Luo Jingying really stunned them. Yes, she had nothing, but her surname was a great weapon. The Luo family was now at the peak of their power. If one day they suddenly remembered that there was such an aunt, they would definitely be pushed out to apologize to the Luo family. Help me to the bed. Don't make me say the same thing a third time. The woman suppressed her anger and helped Luo Jingying up. She rudely put her on the bed. Give me the medicine. Luo Jingying was still arrogant and bossy, without the slightest trace of politeness. She had already come to this point. She couldn't be treated well just because she showed weakness. Since that was the case, why should she feel wronged? She could live freely for one day. Then, the other concubines who came to see her make a fool of herself saw such a scene after entering the door. She should have been a person with a lot of negative emotions, but she looked quite leisurely. The new servant was ordered around by her with a sullen face. It was not what they expected. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653312. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Bicken. Mobile Edition. Chapter 226. You're finally here. You made me wait for so long. But it's good. I'm quite bored now. Luo Jingying was not angry at all when she saw them in the past. She was even in a good mood and waved at them. This was even more strange. Did she lose her mind after losing her child? However, this didn't seem like something a lunatic would do. For a moment, no one spoke first. Luo Jingying sneered. She remembered how these people looked when they found out that she was pregnant. How they looked when they found out that she was pregnant but lost favor. Now, they wanted to hit her when she was down. Before, because the child was still alive, she carefully protected it. Even if she was arrogant and domineering, she was more afraid in appearance and tried to stay as far away from them as possible. Now, she did not care about anything. If others made her unhappy, then everyone would be unhappy together. But she was not in good health now and could not do anything for the time being. Wait until she recovered. Sure enough, even if she did not speak for a while, they could not help but be sarcastic after a while. Before losing her child, Luo Jingying might have been easily angered by them. Now, she found that she did not feel anything, so she calmly listened to them scolding her without any vulgarities. Then, when they finally seemed to realize that something was wrong, she slowly opened her mouth. You don't want to talk anymore? Then it's my turn to talk. I have no favor, and the child is gone. The Luo family does not care about me at all. It's all right. Do you know why the Luo family does not care about me? It's because I'm blind and do not know what's good for me. Wang Yi wants to win over my grandfather, but unfortunately, my grandfather has no intention of working for him. Wang Yi has his eyes on me, but he does not understand the situation. I have no place in my grandfather's heart. He should be more interested in Luo Jingwan. Luo Jingwan may be annoying, but she's a good judge of character. Our prince probably hasn't even come within 10 feet of my third sister. As she spoke, she burst into laughter. His Highness has tried every means to get close to the Luo family, and I'm the thread that's equivalent to nothing. However, if I die, this thread will be completely broken. Grandfather might even be able to use this as an excuse to become irreconcilable enemies with His Highness. Oh, now that I think about it, I actually have some use. We all know what kind of person His Highness is. If you let him miss the opportunity to become the Minister of the Ministry of Personnel, what will happen? I'm looking forward to it. The women were frightened. Luo Jingying was threatening them with death. They knew Wang Ye's nature. Originally, they thought it would be better if she died. If what she said was true, then she couldn't die. That feeling of having a fishbone stuck in their throat was really terrible. This is the Wangfu. How can a person's death spread out? The Luo family doesn't care about you. Even if you turn into dust, the Luo family won't know. One of the women expressed her disdain for Luo Jingying's words. Is that so? Then let's try. Let's see if my mother will suddenly remember me. The women were speechless. A mother wouldn't forget her own child so easily. Until now, she didn't care about her child. They were afraid that she was being suppressed by her parents-in-law. But who could guarantee that there wouldn't be a day when she would loosen up? Not to mention that none of them had a maternal family. Even if they had a maternal family, they definitely wouldn't be able to contend against the minister of the Ministry of Personnel. Seeing them leave dejectedly, Luo Jingying laughed heartily. Her laughter was very carefree, but to their ears, it was very ear-piercing. Does she really dare to seek death? When you have nothing left, then you will know whether she dares or not. But if you die, then so be it. There won't be a ripple. Luo Jingying laughed until tears came out of her eyes. Her voice stopped abruptly. All of you, get out. Luo Jingying was now full of sarcasm. The servants couldn't wait to get away from her and quickly got out. When she was left alone, Luo Jingying curled up and cried silently. She missed the days in the Luo family very much. Even if she was angered by Luo Jingying time and time again, she still felt that it was wonderful when she thought about it now. She was still jealous of her, still hated her, but she also really missed her. At that time, when she knew that she was going to enter Prince Rui's mansion, she was arrogant and insufferably arrogant. She probably mocked her in her heart. No, she had always looked down on her and didn't take her seriously. Maybe she just watched for fun. A few months, just a few months. Thinking back to that time, she wanted to be the noblest woman in the world, let everyone crawl at her feet, and let those who looked down on her beg for repentance. She was really too naive and ridiculous. At the beginning when she fell out of favor, she still wanted to get back. But now, she didn't even want to see that man. Without experiencing it, she wouldn't know how cruel the reality was. If she could have a chance, she would rather avoid Luo Jingwan and find a family of equal social status to marry. She didn't realize this at the moment before she lost her child. Otherwise, she wouldn't have heard that Jingwan's grand coming-of-age ceremony led to a miscarriage. Of course, this was only a trigger. In the final analysis, it was because she had seen red more than once, which affected the fetus. No matter how stable the fetus was, it couldn't stand such torment again and again. However, from now on, Luo Jingying showed her fierce fighting ability in the backyard of Prince Rui's mansion. She knew that someone was scheming against her secretly. She wouldn't play tricks. She would do it openly. She would suddenly rush into your room and smash it. Or she would hold a hairpin and pretend to be weak. She would scratch your face when you were unprepared. Or she would suddenly run out and hit you hard. She would be knocked into the water. Even if she was stopped again and again, the same thing wouldn't happen again. However, Li Hongming also knew that he couldn't let her die. If he locked her up, she would immediately kill herself in various ways. Each time, she would be more ruthless than the last. Li Hongming's face darkened several times. He simply let it go and let Princess Lu deal with it. Luo Jingying behaved well in Princess Lu's place. She told Princess Lu that she would keep Li Hongming in the main courtyard and not let other women get close to him. Even if Princess Lu didn't have feelings for Prince Rui, it was still a great temptation. So, she acquiesced. Luo Jingying didn't make trouble in daily life. However, once she knew that Prince Rui spent the night with a concubine, she would definitely make trouble for that concubine. With Princess Lu's help in secret, those concubines were all tortured miserably. When Li Hongming knew it, Luo Jingying loved him deeply. When he went to other women's places, she went crazy with jealousy. She would only stop when she couldn't touch the princess. In this aspect, men were always a little vain. There was no woman in the backyard that he cared about. In addition, Li Hongming's life outside was very bad. He made mistakes everywhere. He had been scolded by Lu Qingdi more than once. He was in a terrible fix. So, he just let it be. He really didn't enter the concubine's room for several months. As for Luo Jingying, because of her miscarriage, no one had taken good care of her and left her with a chronic illness. If she was calm, it might have affected her fertility. However, she did not stop for a moment. Her body deteriorated day by day, but she did not care. Of course, these were all the stories in the future. A few days after Jingwan's adulthood ceremony, it was Double Ninth Festival. The custom of climbing the mountain was indispensable. Li Hongyuan went to the Luo family's house to pick her up on that day unscrupulously. A few days ago, Madame Luo had been angered by him once. So, she let her go impatiently. Jingwan was taken to an uninhabited place by him and bullied again. Then, in a good mood, he took Jingwan to join the rest of the climbing team. They had a good time. The next day, Jingwan received 2 pieces of news before and after she went. First, Chan Jiangmin and Li Ruyu would get married in 10 days. Second, Sun Yilin was sent out. No matter which news it was, it came suddenly. Although Chan Jiangmin and Li Ruyu's marriage would happen sooner or later, there had been no news before. The 3 letters and 6 rites. They didn't hear about the first step. They were going to get married directly. After 10 days, there was no news of the betrothal gifts. Wasn't that surprising? There was also Sun Yilin. He was doing well in the internal court. Even if he was to be promoted because of the credit of the journey to the west, it seemed that there was no need for him to leave the capital and be sent out. Moreover, Ding General Manor was now in a period of internal strife. Many people had turned to him. If he just patted his butt and left, how could those people endure it? https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653315. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Biku Gu mobile version reading website, bicken.com. Chapter 227. Regardless of whether he was puzzled or enlightened, Sun Yilin had to leave the capital in 2 days. Before he left, he came to see Sun Yijia. Sun Yijia seemed to be in good spirits and seemed to be happy about leaving the capital to become an official. Sun Yijia didn't try to dissuade him. But, did he have to leave in such a hurry? There were still 3 months before the new year. Couldn't he take up his post after the new year? Sun Yilin shook his head. He could feel that someone wanted him to leave. Although he did not know who it was, leaving the capital was not a bad thing for him. This world made him feel oppressed and painful. Although because she was here, there was a hint of sweetness in the oppressive pain. The further he was away, the more lovesick he would feel. However, he needed to do something to distract himself. Before he met Jingwan, his life's ambition was to build his country and rule the world. Jingwan's appearance gave his life a different kind of color. It came so suddenly, but it also failed so quickly. He had no choice but to bury it and let it hurt in his heart again and again. He didn't know if someone else would dig it out in the future. He was muddle-headed for a period of time. Then, he suddenly thought that if he couldn't get back up, didn't achieve anything, and disappeared in the crowd, one day when she talked about him, she would only shake her head and sigh in disappointment. Then, she would completely forget about him without leaving a trace. He felt his heart clench tightly. He didn't want to be forgotten by her. Even if he couldn't be by her side, he wanted to let her know about him from time to time. He wanted to be good enough to stand in a high position. Sun Yilin wasn't a person who buried everything for love. But now, there was another reason for him to be more motivated. Sun Yilin didn't mention Jingwan, but Sun Yijia saw the unconcealable affection in his eyes. It made her heart soften. She wanted to ask Jingwan to come out and see him, but in the end, she restrained herself. She also didn't like men to be fickle. However, if it was her brother who was trapped by his infatuation and couldn't walk out, she would rather he be more affectionate because he couldn't get what he wanted. Tell me, all the men in Duke Dinggua's residence, from grandfather, father, and other brothers, were playboys. How could there be such an odd one? Sun Yijia accidentally muttered these words. Sun Yilin found it funny, If he was really a playboy, little sister, you probably wouldn't be close to fifth brother. Okay, I'm going back. Don't think about sending me off when I leave. I'll write you a letter after I settle down there. Sun Yijia sent Sun Yilin with tears in her eyes. The next day, Sun Yilin's residence, he would return to the capital for at least 3 years. The moment Jing Wan heard the news, she didn't know what to feel. It was hard to describe. Then, it was Chen Jingmin's wedding. The Luo family was very respectful and basically all of them went. However, no one went to Xian Fong. Moreover, he was helping Luo Jinghua get married. This time, he didn't ask the Luo brothers to help. To be precise, except for the necessary people, he was the only one in the wedding procession. The wedding procession looked very shabby. Their branch might not be rich, but it wasn't to this extent. They were clearly showing their displeasure. Jingwan was silent. She didn't know what to say, or perhaps she shouldn't say anything. Wedding banquet. Wedding banquet. Because it was truly a happy occasion, the atmosphere would be lively. Most of the people who came to the Chen family knew what was going on, especially the Chen family members themselves. They all had a straight face, not a single smile on their faces. It was better not to attend such a wedding. The wedding procession came back much earlier than expected. Prince Cheng's mansion, no, it seemed to be Duke Cheng's mansion now, was much smaller than the original mansion, so there was probably no one to block the door. If the groom decided to quit, it would be really embarrassing. Although Duke Cheng's mansion had a strong background, the fact that the wedding had been delayed until today was very clear. For example, if Emperor Lu Chang did not do anything, the Empress did not do anything, and Duke Ding's mansion did not do anything, it was just an empty shell with the name of Duke Cheng's mansion in name. When the bride came in, everyone found that she seemed to be swaying even when walking. The groom, Chen Zhengmin, was expressionless. He held the end of the red silk and walked in front, completely ignoring the bride. Jingwan looked at Li Ruyu, who was covered with a veil, and frowned. She was so thin that her waist could be controlled with 2 hands. There was no news about her in the past few months. She guessed that she was living a bad life. She thought about the first time she saw her. She was also dressed in red, rude and arrogant, and her whip was fierce. Now, forget it. Jingwan felt that she had no right to interfere in other people's business. Moreover, knowing that Chen Jingmin's thoughts were on her, she still went up to him to comfort him and ask him to live a good life. That was actually a very cruel thing to do. In the current situation, it was also very inappropriate behavior. The best thing to do was to stay far away and have nothing to do with each other. The next day, Jingwan heard that Chen Jingmin's wedding procession was similar to what she had expected. It was said that there were not many people from Duke Cheng's mansion. Even Ding General Manor only sent people to send gifts in a normal way. For the wedding banquet, there would be no one at all dressed up. In addition, his son-in-law was not respectful at all and did a perfunctory job of keeping up appearances. Duke Cheng was so angry that his veins were bulging. He really wanted to beat Chen Zhengmin up. Unfortunately, Chen Zhengmin was very straightforward and even wanted Duke Cheng to beat him up. He turned around and left. There was no need to pick him up. His wife was in tears and finally managed to persuade him to stay. When Chen Zhengmin's temper became stubborn, it was also very troublesome. The days that followed were neither salty nor dull. Occasionally, she would attend the chrysanthemum banquets of various families. Speaking of which, the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet had the most chrysanthemums and the most complete variety. In the past, when the chrysanthemums bloomed, he would often take them out to make people envious. Only this year, so far, there was no movement. Speaking of which, the Ruan family was in a precarious situation this year. Not to mention the flower appreciation banquet, there was no other birthday banquet. However, it was said that the Grand Secretary, who had always been stingy, had given several pots of famous chrysanthemums to the Minister of Personnel, Lord Luo. After asking around, it was said that it was to make amends. Many people believed it. Jingwan felt that there might be other reasons. However, since this treasure was in her hands, she would naturally take good care of it. When she brought the pot of Yaotai Jade Phoenix to the capital, there were only a few stems. Now, it had grown into a large clump. The flowers bloomed and looked exceptionally beautiful. Looking at these flowers and plants, her mood could not help but become cheerful. The weather was gradually getting colder. Every family had started to cut winter clothes early. The Luo family was no exception. Previously, when they were cutting autumn clothes, Jing Wan and the others were not in the capital. According to Madame Wang's wishes, they had to cut 2 more sets of winter clothes. Jing Wan refused. In reality, she had a lot of money. The clothes she usually wore were all made by the people around her. She had as many as she wanted. Basically, she had never worn any of the common clothes. Jing Wan didn't feel that she was wearing them, but Nanny Gong didn't like them. Moreover, the people around her knew her measurements very well. Every piece of clothing they made was just right, and it was the most comfortable to wear. Thus, having more would be a waste. If she asked, she might as well not take any of them. However, there were many times when it was better not to refuse. Sun Yijia did not want a single piece. Her situation was special. Now that her belly was growing quickly, and she did not lack those things. It could be said that she was cutting new clothes every few days. Now that she was taking measurements in the office, even if it was made bigger, it might not fit her. Her situation was similar to Jingwan's, so she really did not need to waste time. The young and old ladies were excitedly choosing cloth at Madame Luo's place. As the eldest of the unmarried ladies, Jingwan casually picked 2 bolts and let her younger sisters choose. There were many colors. In the end, they would always find something they liked. If 2 ladies liked the same color, they would just cut a set of clothes for the same color. The remaining ladies in the Luo family were not particularly competitive. They would not be estranged over a piece of cloth. Jingwan received a message from Yun Yang. She went to Rouge Pavilion and brought back a large amount of dividends. Jingwan used to think that she was a rich woman. Now, she received too many good things. She did not want to estimate their value. She also packed a lot of rouge and face powder from Rouge Pavilion. When she took it back, each branch would send gifts to her. After Jingwan moved to the capital city, the madams and ladies of the Luo family saved a lot of money on rouge and face powder. The things they used were still the best. In the blink of an eye, it was the day before Zhou Yingshuang's wedding. Yuan Qiao asked Jingwan to add to her dowry. She asked Jingwan to bring Sun Yijia's dowry to the wedding. Before they left home, Wangzhu Yuyao came to them again. Since the first time she came to the Luo family, Wangzhu Yuyao came here every few days. Today, she was particularly confident that she would add to Miss Zhou's dowry on behalf of Princess Yu. Jingwan knew that she did this for her sake. It must be said that Great Elder Princess was quite competent as Lin Mengya's foster mother. Because most of her relatives and friends were adding to her dowry on this day, when Jingwan and others came, many people were there. When they entered the room, everyone hurriedly stood up to greet them, especially Yu Yao. As the Wangzhu, she should accept the greetings. Yu Yao might be a little impulsive in daily life, but when she was serious, she was very serious. She even had a little bit of Great Elder Princess's shadow. In a short time, she could be very intimidating. With regards to Yu Yao's arrival, especially when she stated her intentions, not to mention the relatives and friends of the Zhou family, even the people of the Zhou family were very surprised. She directly alarmed the old madam of the Zhou family. This was the honor that came with status. The gifts sent by Great Elder Princess were certainly not shabby. They were opened on the spot, which made all the madams and ladies in the room envious. Many people were also curious about the gifts sent by Jingwan, but Zhou Yingshuang didn't open them. She knew that Jingwan was never a stingy person. Compared with Great Elder Princess's gifts, her gifts were probably even better. If others saw them, it would be a slap in Great Elder Princess's face. At that time, it would be really embarrassing. Of course, there were also smart people who thought of this. They didn't join in the fun and even stood on Zhou Yingshuang's side to say something. The girl who spoke didn't realize it for a moment and was naturally unhappy. The faces of Zhou Yingshuang's mother and grandmother darkened one after another. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, Someone with a glib tongue helped to change the topic. Jing Wan didn't say anything, because the gifts she prepared were more and more exquisite regardless of the value. Because there were quite a lot of people coming and going, Jing Wan and others didn't stay long and said that they would come tomorrow morning. When almost all the people left, Mrs. Zhou walked into her daughter's room. Seeing Zhou Yingshuang touching a set of hair accessories, Mrs. Zhou's eyes flashed with surprise. Even the gifts she prepared for her daughter were not as good as this one. She walked forward and asked, "Is this a gift from Miss Luo?" Zhou Yingshuang looked up at her mother and nodded. Mrs. Zhou stroked her head and said, "Keep it well. Mother doesn't need to worry that you will suffer in the future. With such a handkerchief to support you, you are stronger than our Zhou family. This is also my son's fortune." Zhou Yingshuang nodded. She felt the same way. When she first became friends with Jing Wan, it was only because their personalities were more compatible. Coupled with her relationship with Yuan Xiaoqiao, they got closer and closer. Who knew how many people envied her today? Zhou Yingshuang's heart was filled with sweetness. Jing Wan came over early in the morning as she said. However, Mrs. Quan Fu was already wringing noodles for Zhou Yingshuang. She wrung out all the hair on her face. It was painful just looking at it. Jing Wan touched her face. There was almost no hair on her face. When the time came, she shouldn't have to suffer. It was best to let Mrs. Quan Fu do the honors. She wrung the noodles and carefully combed her hair. When it was time to put on makeup, Zhou Yingshuang begged Jing Wan to help her. Although it was against the rules, Mrs. Quan Fu didn't mind. Jing Wan also readily agreed. She carefully put on makeup for her, covering up some small flaws. She also put on a light layer of blush according to her face shape. Her face was still the same face, but it looked more beautiful. Many people were amazed. No wonder the bride wanted Luo San Miss to help her with her makeup. If they were in her shoes, they would definitely do the same. When the groom lifts the veil, I don't know how happy he will be. Zhou Yingshuang blushed, adding a touch of color to her face. By the time everything was done, most of the people had left. Only Jing Wan and a few others stayed behind to chat with her. Not to mention other things, just by listening to the movements outside, it was clear that this wedding was far from the one a few days ago. The groom is here. Digression, a bit stuck, but there shouldn't be many chapters until Jing Wan gets married. https://www. Bicken. com/11/11807/6653319. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Biku Gu mobile reading website. Bicken.com. Chapter 228. The groom is here. Hearing this, Zhou Yingshuang's body tensed up and she unconsciously clenched her fists. Jing Wan comfortingly patted her hand and smiled. The one who needs to be nervous now is the one outside, not you. Zhou Yingshuang glared at her. When you get married, I think Jin Qinhuang won't be nervous. After all, there's no door that he can't open. You should think carefully about who will guard the door for you. That door will open as soon as he barges in. Aren't you embarrassed? What's there for me to be embarrassed about? I'm not the one guarding the door. Didn't they say that a married girl is like spilled water? The one who is being talked about is definitely not me. Jing Wan smilingly said. Your skin is this thick. Does your family know? Ah, such a question with a sense of past life. It's a pity that this girl didn't wear it. They know. Ah, my third sister-in-law often says that. Jing Wan nodded seriously. You really don't have any shame. Zhou Yingshuang pointed at her, her finger trembling. She was angry. What is that? Can it be eaten? Jing Wan said and suddenly opened her mouth, pretending to bite her finger. Zhou Yingshuang hurriedly retracted her hand and looked at Jing Wan speechlessly. She was clearly dignified and elegant in front of others, but in private, she was like a rogue. Yuan Xiaoqiao laughed at the side. Wan, don't tease Ying Shuang. In any case, she is a bride today. Zhou Yingshuang glared at Yuan Qiao again. You guys can bully me all you want. When you get married, I'd like to see if you're not nervous at all. When the time comes to offend me, I'll definitely pay you back tenfold. Jingwan stuck out her chest and nodded. I'll wait. Jingwan thought to herself that most girls would be nervous when they got married because they were going to a strange place and facing strange people. That was why they couldn't help but feel uneasy. The man she was going to marry was an overbearing, unreasonable, and unruly hooligan. They had already crossed the line and were familiar with each other. It would be strange if she was still nervous. Of course, there was another situation that might make her nervous, and that was when she was deeply in love. Jingwan obviously did not belong to this category. However, after being disturbed by Jingwan, Zhou Yingshuang wasn't as nervous anymore. In fact, it wasn't that they hadn't thought of currying favor with Jingwan, but they had all failed. Jingwan was generous and decent to them. She seemed easy to get close to, but in fact, that wasn't the case. If you continued to approach her because you were unwilling to give up, she would directly turn cold. Her good temper had its limits. Even if you wanted to get close to her through Zhou Yingshuang and the others, it wouldn't have any effect. If you didn't know when to back off, you would even offend her. Moreover, the son of the Imperial College's Chancellor's family was talented, scholarly, and good-looking. He was also this year's Jinsher. Furthermore, he was ranked in the top 50 in the final court examination and entered the Hanlin Academy. He should be considered a potential stock. When she learned that Zhou Yingshuang was about to get married, after some hesitation, Jingwan asked Jin Qinhuang for help to investigate that person's background. He only had one Tong Fong maidservant. He didn't belong to the type that grew up together and had a deep friendship. He was purely an ordinary Tong Fong. He definitely didn't have any concubines or illegitimate children. At the same time, he also didn't have any bad habits. However, perhaps because his father was usually very strict, his temperament seemed to be a little soft. These were flaws in Jingwan's eyes, but at present, he was a good candidate for a husband. Jingwan still remembered when Jin Qinhuang told her about this. His evaluation of this person was that being a deputy wasn't bad, but letting him be in charge of one side was a bit forced. According to Li Hongyuan's meaning, if Jingwan wanted, he could be promoted. If one day she didn't find him pleasing to the eye, she could easily crush him with one foot. Jingwan was speechless that a certain person was always so violent. However, she also knew that Jin Qinhuang wasn't joking around with these words. That meant that Jingwan, to a certain extent, actually held the power to kill Zhou Yingshuang's husband. In fact, this bridal escort was a test. Even if he really couldn't pass, he wouldn't really not be allowed to pick up the bride. The one outside, using literature to break through the door really wasn't a difficult matter. After all, in the Zhou family, there was no one more knowledgeable than him. Also, several of these make-up-urging poems were handed in. Sure enough, the Zhou family couldn't withstand it. Not long after, the bridegroom brought people to break into the courtyard. At this time, it was naturally time for the womenfolk to step out. However, most of the womenfolk just stretched out their hands and asked for red packets. The servant girls truthfully conveyed the situation outside. Yuan Qiao listened with interest and couldn't sit still. She tilted her head and looked outside. Jingwan found it funny. If you want to watch the show, then go out. Otherwise, you'll have to personally make things difficult for the bridegroom. Hearing this, Yuan Qiao really stood up. Yingshuang, I'll help you check. Zhou Yingshuang wanted to stop her, but Yuan Qiao walked quickly and she couldn't get down from the ground now. Yuan Qiao righteously separated the womenfolk and stood in front of the bridegroom. Lu Gongzi, did you bring your zither? Luo Jingbua played the song, A Male Phoenix Seeking a Female Phoenix to marry Sun Yijia, to welcome her. This had almost become a necessary part of the wedding ceremony for the men in the capital. When no one mentioned it, perhaps some people would pretend to be deaf and mute. Very few people would take the initiative to play it. After all, it required courage to play decadent music and recite sentimental lyrics in public. But now that the bridegroom had mentioned it, he couldn't pretend not to understand. If the bridegroom really pointed it out, the bridegroom would have some ideas. I did. Lu Gongzi nodded his head and replied. Yuan Xiaoqiao nodded, then I'll wait and have my fill. But Lu Gongzi, why do you have to remind me? Why can't you take the initiative? She seemed to be a little disappointed as she shook her head. Lu Gongzi was able to handle the crowd outside with ease, but when he faced Yuan Xiaoqiao, he was a little embarrassed. To put it bluntly, he wasn't good at dealing with girls, especially someone like Yuan Xiaoqiao who was outspoken. Everyone who helped him to welcome the bridegroom showed subtle sympathy for him. At the same time, those who weren't married wondered if they would receive the same treatment in the future. Those who were married felt lucky and regretful. The bridegroom wanted to play the guqin, so the guqin table was naturally prepared very quickly. Zhou Yingshuang was worried that her husband would be embarrassed by Yuan Xiaoqiao when she heard the sound of the guqin. When she heard him recite the lyrics, her face flushed red. She lowered her head and played with her fingers. Jingwan gave a thumbs up to Yuan Xiaoqiao, who walked in with a smile. Yuan Xiaoqiao's smile became more obvious. Zhou Yingshuang listened quietly, but the heat on her face didn't disappear for a long time. Madame Chuanfu came in with the matron of honor. She covered her head with a veil and prepared to go out. Yingshuang will be blessed in the future. Zhou Yingshuang paid her respects to her parents and was sent to the bridal sedan by her brothers. Jingwan and Yuan Xiaoqiao, as sisters who were sending her off, went with her. It was the first time she went to the residence of the Directorate's Chancellor. The Chancellor was an honest official. This was confirmed by Jin Qinhuang's mouth. It wasn't a pretense, but because one of his brothers moved out of the household register and became a merchant, he didn't lack money. Entering the Lu family's door, it could be seen that even if they didn't lack money, the Lu family was not extravagant. Jingwan had a general understanding of the Lu family. In fact, she knew it very clearly from Jin Qinhuang, but she wanted to verify it with her own eyes to be more assured. Then Jingwan patted her own head. She was simply crazy. Even if she wasn't satisfied, could she dismantle this marriage? She threw the idea of wanting to explore to one side. It wouldn't be good if people saw it. Coming out of the bridal chamber to take the banquet, she probably wouldn't see Zhou Yingshuang for a while. Jingwan had just returned home and learned that the third branch's Huan Yinyang had flared up. Jingwan thought for a moment. It seemed that the months were still a bit insufficient. However, she didn't go to understand this matter. Besides, whether the months were enough or not, it had nothing to do with her. If she was born and raised, it would just be one more mouth in the Luo family. It wouldn't be that they couldn't afford to raise her. If she wasn't born or died young, it could only be heaven's will. Jingwan didn't know that Huan Yinyang was ordered by Lu Shi to serve Luo Romping. Imagine a person who was suddenly paralyzed in bed, such a big drop, it must be a variety of negative emotions. Such a person needed to be served like this when eating, drinking, and going to the toilet. Especially on a hot day, she had to wipe her body several times a day. How could a pregnant woman bear this kind of tiredness? Moreover, once Luo Romping went crazy, she might be hurt. In order to keep the child, Huan Yinyang could be said to be exhausting herself. She always coaxed Luo Romping tenderly and sweetly. When other people were pregnant, they would more or less gain weight. She not only didn't gain weight, she was also terribly thin. Even if she had a belly, it was estimated that she didn't have her original weight. If Jingwan were to see her now, she would definitely be shocked. And it was a miracle that her child could stay in her belly until now. Huan Yinyang had a difficult birth. She was thin because she was physically and mentally exhausted, but she was not treated harshly in terms of food. In fact, Lu Shi also specially asked people to prepare a lot of supplements for her. It could be seen that she was really sinister. Huan Yinyang also knew clearly, but she couldn't refuse. She also knew that it was impossible to resolve the matter between her and Lu Shi. Huan Yinyang stayed up for a day and a night, but she couldn't give birth to the child. In the end, 2 lives were lost. No matter how tough Huan Yinyang was, or how scheming she was defeated by Lu Shi. The only difference between her and Lucia was their status. Her honor and disgrace depended on Luo romping, but Lucia was not. In the backyard of a noble house, the death of a lowly concubine couldn't make a splash at all. Perhaps she knew too much. After hearing this, Jingwan just said, "Why bother?" The weather was already cold. There was nothing to do this winter, so they could basically prepare for the winter. At this time, Jingwan was once again bullied by a local tyrant. Jin Qinhuang sent a lot of leather, and they were all very expensive leather. If it was in the previous life, it would definitely be sold at a sky-high price. After all, it couldn't be found in the market at all. White fox leather, fire fox leather, and even black fox leather, not to mention other mink leather, silver mouse leather, and so on. Jingwan finally found tiger leather, leopard leather, and said that it was for Jingwan to use as a mattress. Each kind of leather was smooth and soft, the color was pure, and the color was single. Basically, there was no trace of other colors. It felt quite good to the touch. Jingwan thought, fortunately, there was no animal protection law now, otherwise Jin Qinhuang would https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/6653321 HTML chapter error. Click here to report, exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicon.com. Bikugu mobile reading website, bicon.com. Chapter 229. Towards Jin Qinhuang's behavior of giving a lot of good things at every turn, the Luo family was also accustomed to it. There were many people who were envious, but not many who were jealous. Jingwan would always divide a part of the things, and this time was the same. In fact, Li Hongyuan had already made preparations. He had reserved the part for the Luo family in advance, and the best ones were for Jingwan. On one hand, he knew that Jingwan would not monopolize it, and on the other hand, he did not want Jingwan to draw too much hatred in the Luo family. After all, Jingwan was different from him. She cared about her family, and if there were good things, she would share it with them. The things reserved for the Luo family, in Li Hongyuan's eyes, were only defective goods. Even so, the majority of the Luo family loved them so much that they could not part with them. These were good things that they could not ask for in the past. Thinking about the things in Jingwan's hands. Forget it, people should be content with what they have. Being too greedy would not have a good end. Jingwan originally wanted to give old Madame Luo's black fox fur to use. After all, the black fox fur that Li Hongyuan got was limited, and the fox fur was originally thick, so it was not suitable to make a whole set of clothes. However, old Madame Luo refused. The things that Jin Qinhuang prepared for his fiancée, how could an old woman like her take them all? The things that were given to her were already very good. Moreover, the best things, she naturally wanted to use them on Jingwan. After getting these things, the one who was the most impolite was probably Gong Mama. She finished dividing these hides into cloaks, overcoats, everything that one could think of, not to mention using them as accessories on clothes. Jingwan wanted to say, "Mama, use up all the things that don't need lungs at once." She was still growing, and after 1 or 2 years, it would be too short. These things would not be the same as ordinary clothes, no longer fitting, or after this season, she would not want them anymore. That was simply a waste of God's gifts, and she would be struck by lightning, okay? Young lady, don't worry. How could Jin Qinhuang be short of something like this? In the future, they could just buy a new one. Besides, even if it was a little short, they could just piece it back together in the future. It wouldn't be wasted at will. All right, Jingwan shut her mouth. There was no point in saying more. The people around her were absolutely excellent at making clothes. Even if it was piecing, Jingwan felt that she couldn't find any traces at all. They were all capable people. However, after receiving so many good things, Jing-wan felt that she should give something in return. But no matter how she thought about it, the other party didn't have anything good. In terms of these external objects, there was probably nothing that she had that he didn't have. Or rather, he should personally do something to express his sincerity. As the saying goes, the gift is light, but the sentiment is more important. As a useless actress, it was better not to make a fool of herself. Jing-wan guessed that if she gave him something, he would probably use it. Thinking about that person, which one of his clothes was not the best of the best? In other words, it was the best of the best. If low-end things suddenly appeared on his body, it was simply inappropriate. Just thinking about it would ruin his image. Then, what could she give him? It seemed that other than herself. Stop. Jing-wan covered her face. After meeting that bastard, she was becoming more and more filthy. If she couldn't think of anything, then she would just leave it hanging. However, recently, Jing-wan felt that the atmosphere in the capital was somewhat not right. Moreover, she hadn't seen grandfather for a few days. Not to mention in the morning, he went out too early. She also couldn't see him at night, which was a bit unusual. Grandmother didn't mention it, and Jing-wan also didn't ask. It was just those trivial matters in the imperial court. You cheat me, I harm you, and set each other up. After a few days, Jing-wan hugged a hand warmer. The temperature in the capital was much lower than Qi and Fu. Jing-wan felt that she had become delicate. Unless it was necessary, she just stayed in her room and didn't want to go out. Because of the floor tiles, the room was quite comfortable. Madame Luo had reduced the number of times she paid her respects, once every 3 days. However, Jing-wan still went every day, but later in the morning and earlier in the evening. Perhaps it had become a habit, or perhaps it was the after-effect of Madame Luo's near-death experience a few years ago. Jing-wan seemed to feel a little uneasy if she didn't see her every day. On this day, when Jing-wan accompanied Madame Luo for dinner, she learned that many courtiers were staying overnight in the palace, including grandfather. Jing-wan's heart skipped a beat. Why did it feel like they were imprisoning courtiers and forcing a rebellion? Jing-wan put down her chopsticks and wiped her mouth. Grandmother, what happened? Prince Kong is back. Jing-wan just remembered that there was no such person during the summer vacation. Later, it was said that he asked for disaster relief. Why did he only come back now? Thinking about it, it seemed to be more than 4 months. Could it be that the recent events had something to do with him? A few days ago, he was assassinated on the way back and disappeared under the protection of the guards. His Majesty sent people to look for him, but they couldn't find him. Until today, he came back alone, dressed in ragged clothes, like a beggar, with injuries. He was stopped from entering the city. If he didn't happen to meet someone close to him, when he was found by someone who didn't want him to live, I'm afraid. Jing-wan understood Madame Luo's unfinished words. Even in the capital, there were not many people who knew the royal family. Moreover, most people didn't know that Prince Kong was assassinated and disappeared. A beggar dared to pretend to be a royal family member, and a prince at that. If it was made public, for example, the guards at the city gate had been bribed by others, and he might be killed directly. Prince Kong was smart for once. When he was stopped, he didn't shout loudly. Instead, he swallowed his anger and retreated. It didn't seem to be in line with his temperament. Prince Kong was impulsive, irritable, and arrogant. He dared to stop a small guard at the city gate, but he didn't kick him directly. Probably someone said something to him before. Madame Luo nodded. It's very likely. Prince Kang's disaster relief didn't go well. He encountered several riots, and there was one time when he was patrolling the dam. There was a sudden flood and he fell into the water, almost losing his life. This time, it happened once or twice by chance. If it happened too many times, then it's because he brought enough guards with him, and the protection was tight. Once or twice was by chance, but if it happened too many times, it was probably inevitable that people would think that it was a conspiracy. After Prince Kong simply freshened up, he directly entered the palace. In front of the Holy Emperor, he was in the middle of crying when he fainted. The entire imperial hospital was alarmed. It was said that Prince Kong was seriously injured. It's not easy for him to hold on for so long. Before, it was probably because his spirit was tense, but when he suddenly relaxed, he couldn't hold on anymore. It was as if his life was hanging by a thread. The Holy Emperor was furious. Grandfather and the others aren't doctors. What's the use of the Holy Emperor keeping them? Who knows? Madame Luo absent-mindedly answered. She didn't care whether Prince Kong was dead or alive. Jingwan laughed. I'm afraid that Prince Rue and the Gong Prince will be anxious. Madame Luo glanced at her. How the others were, Madame Luo didn't have any thoughts. Most likely, Prince Jean had a hand in it. He was cold-blooded and ruthless to everyone. His remaining humanity and tenderness seemed to be left for Wan Wan. If it could continue like this, it would be Wan Wan's luck. Then, she would probably be able to rest in peace. Jing Wan subconsciously touched her face. What is grandmother looking at? Nothing. The matters of the court have nothing to do with us. It's the 12th lunar month, less than a month away from the new year. I hope we can have a peaceful year. It doesn't matter. Even if something bad happened to Prince Kong, it's just like that. It's not like... Indeed, when a prince died, it wasn't up to other people to mourn for him. But Wan Wan, it's your first time spending winter in the north. Be careful, don't catch a cold. This was what Madame Luo was most worried about. My health has always been very good. Grandmother doesn't need to worry about me. But grandmother, you haven't been in the capital for many years. You must be careful. Since the beginning of winter, she had been watching her grandmother almost every day, fearing that she would fall ill. The two of them regarded each other as very important. When Jingwan returned, her feet paused. She took a small detour and went to Falling Plum House. Third young lady has come. The gatekeeper of Falling Plum House hurriedly took out a hanging lamp to lead the way. Knowing that Jingwan had come, Luo Rongyan and Zhongshe hurriedly got up and came out. They couldn't be blamed. After their relationship with Jingwan worsened, they wanted to make up for it but didn't know where to start. Other than paying respects, Jingwan didn't take the initiative to step into Falling Plum House. Clearly, Falling Plum House and Begonia House were only separated by a wall and a small door was opened. Father, mother, Jingwan bent her knees. It's cold outside. Why did you come out? Zhongshe's eyes reddened and she was about to cry. But when she remembered that her daughter disliked this, she hurriedly wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. You also know that it's cold. Quickly go inside. No, it's not good to be cold and hot. I just want to cut a few plum blossoms to make a vase. Although disappointed, Luo Rongyan immediately said, Father will cut it for you. Jingwan didn't refuse and smiled. Thank you, father. Luo Rongyan waved his hand. I'm your father. You don't have to be so polite. The maidservant was even more clever. She immediately fetched a pair of scissors. No one would say that it was dark now to cut flowers. Probably no one knew better than Luo Rongyan which part of Falling Plum House's plum blossoms were the best. Luo Rongyan was very protective of the plum blossoms in this courtyard. Usually, even he was reluctant to cut them down to make a vase. But now, he didn't hold back at all. He took the scissors and cut them with all his might. He wasn't worried that he would cut a piece of the plum blossoms bald. Jingwan was speechless. Even if you cut flowers, you shouldn't cut them like this. After cutting them, you should take into account their beauty. Moreover, the basket was almost full. It was just making a vase. There was really no need to cut so many flowers. Father, that's enough. Luo Rongyan paused and stopped. He handed the scissors to the maidservant and personally carried the basket over. Is it enough? It seems a little too little. It's enough. Jingwan took the basket and handed it to the maidservant. Father, mother, quickly go inside. It's almost the new year. Don't catch a cold. Daughter will go back first. Luo Rongyan nodded. If the plum blossoms fail to bloom, I'll have someone cut them. Okay, quickly go inside. Walk slowly at night. Don't fall. Madame Zhang couldn't help but remind them. As if she was still worried, she asked 2 more people to add 2 more lanterns for Jingwan. Jingwan slowly returned to the elegant begonia residence. In the end, Prince Kong was rescued. Lu Qingdi's anger also subsided a little. However, this matter obviously wouldn't be settled so easily. He would definitely investigate to the end. But everyone was well aware that it wouldn't be easy to investigate. On the 23rd day of the 12th lunar month, Lu Qingdi sealed the imperial brush. From top to bottom, the collective began to magnify the holiday. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653323. HTML. Click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 230. On the 23rd, His Majesty sealed the pen. At the same time, it also meant that the new year officially began. The most important thing on this day was naturally the sacrifice to the stove. However, this had nothing to do with Jingwan. Wasn't that the so-called women don't sacrifice to the stove? Although Jingwan had never sacrificed to the stove before, she had seen it before. It was similar to most sacrifices, so she didn't join in the fun. Jingwan was a little scared when she saw Sun Yijia's big belly. Now, Jingwan didn't dare to get close to her, as if she was afraid that something would happen if she wasn't careful. This was already the 9th month. It wasn't long before the little guy was born. All the preparations to welcome the little guy had been completed a month ago. Sun Yijia's condition was quite good. She didn't have the so-called prenatal depression. Every time she saw Jingwan's cautious look, she felt very happy. You're already like this when you're in my belly. What will you do when you're pregnant in the future? Jingwan paused. That's right. Although she already had the resolve to get married and have children, that resolve only existed in her heart. Sun Yijia, her sister-in-law, was the closest pregnant woman she had the most contact with. Other than her, she would at most glance at her from afar. But Sun Yijia, from the moment she found out that she was pregnant until now, she had seen her almost every day. She had seen the whole process with her eyes. That feeling was completely different. Speaking of which, she was going to get married next year. If she hit the jackpot on the first try like Sun Yijia, wouldn't that mean? Thinking of that scene, Jingwan was a little depressed. She would only be 15 years old when the new year started. 15 years old, her small body hadn't grown. Was it really okay to have children? Not to mention waiting until she was 18 years old, at least until she was 16 years old. It would be even better if she could delay it until she was 20 years old. However, thinking about it, she knew that it was impossible. She didn't know if she could negotiate with a certain someone. How long would it take? Jingwan felt that her sister-in-law wasn't depressed. She was about to be. Depression was a thing that didn't have a shadow. After being depressed for a while, she forgot about it. From the servants to the young masters, everyone was very busy. It was also full of laughter. The house was dusted 24/7. Even though it was clean every day, it still had to be cleaned today. Jingwan looked at the people around her going in and out. She sat there in a daze. After that, there was still the matter of receiving the Jade Emperor, washing blessings, and so on. Pasting the couplets was naturally a very important matter. Putting up couplets was a must. Every door and every object had to be pasted. There were many scholars in the family, so it wasn't a big deal. He even wrote some rewards for the servants. Therefore, Emperor Lu Chengdi would naturally bestow the word fu, which was also a great sign of being favored. Therefore, anyone who had the chance would ask for a few. Of course, it was impossible for the officials, only the princes, concubines, and relatives. Other than the Fu character, there was also the door god. However, Jingwan still felt that it was a little too little. She had people put up red lanterns, all of which were big and round in shape. They were either written with auspicious characters or pasted with clippings. Then, she tied a big blessing knot and hung it everywhere, adding to the festive atmosphere. In the blink of an eye, it was New Year's Eve. On this day, every family had a family sacrifice. The offerings prepared were very rich. The busiest time in the kitchen was when the children started to play and set off firecrackers. Some of the main dishes were prepared a few days ago, so that they could make a sumptuous New Year's Eve dinner on New Year's Eve. The sound of firecrackers came from the streets and alleys, mixed with the chatter and laughter everywhere. It was very pleasant to the ears. During the New Year's Eve dinner, although the male and female seats were still separated, they were not separated. The table was full of dishes. All of them had auspicious symbols. Even though Jingwan had seen it for many years and many times, she still felt very emotional. For the food that they ate, other than the cold dishes, the other main dishes were still hot. Then today, except for the eldest son of the eldest son who was too young to drink, the others could drink no matter how young they were. At this time, there was no need to be particular about not talking while eating. Even if the children ate and played around at the table, they were not restrained. This New Year's Eve dinner lasted for 4 hours. Of course, in the end, basically no one touched their chopsticks. Those hot dishes were only touched at the beginning. The table was finally removed. The whole family gathered in the hall. Even the servants gathered outside, their faces full of joy. Starting from the 2 elders, they gave out red packets. Everyone of their younger generation had a share. Receiving a red packet, even if it was only a copper coin, was still something to be happy about. Kneeling, saying auspicious words, asking for red packets, round after round, the younger the generation, the more red packets they received. In this way, the eldest son of the eldest son of the eldest son of the eldest son became the biggest winner. Even the very young uncles and aunts also wanted to give him red packets. Seeing this, the whole family was overjoyed. It had been a few years since it had been so lively, and Madame Luo's smile had never disappeared. After she was done here, Wang Shi arranged to give out red packets to the servants according to their grades, batch by batch, and then went to replace the other people on duty. In previous years, the red packets were 2 months' worth of salary, but this year, it was 4 months' worth. Wang Shi also directly told them that this was old Madame Luo's first year in the capital, so the extra 2 months' worth of salary were awarded by old Madame Luo. These people had served people all their lives for this. Naturally, they were very grateful to Madame Luo. They kept saying nice things like longevity and longevity. Madame Luo was less moved, but she couldn't help but be happy for Luo Shongshu. Like Jingwan, he cared about Madame Luo's health very much. Naturally, he felt very comfortable listening to these kind words. When the clock struck midnight, the bell on the tower rang, and the sound of firecrackers shook the sky above the capital. At this time of the 3 yuan of the year, the month, and the time, a blazing fire was set up in the courtyard to show that it was prosperous and prosperous. Around the blazing fire, the big and small children set off firecrackers again. They were lively and lively. The house was brightly lit, and there were bright sparks in front of the courtyard. Outside the house, there were loud noises. This was the most lively time to bid farewell to the old and welcome the new. However, after the celebration, the little fellows began to feel sleepy. It was already good that they were able to hold on until now. The next day, the families of officials of the 5th rank and above entered the palace to pay a New Year's visit. The men were all dressed in court robes, and the madams of the higher ranks were naturally dressed up. They looked very stylish. In comparison, the young ladies and wives could dress up beautifully. They were gorgeously dressed, adding a lot of warm colors in the bitter cold. It was pleasing to the eye. A long line of carriages was waiting to enter the palace. Luo Shongshu's official position was high enough. Under the premise that only one member of the imperial family could enter, the Luo family's carriage naturally didn't have to wait too long. After checking their identities, Jingwan and the others were respectfully allowed to enter. The womenfolk had to pay New Year's greetings to the Empress and the others. Since it wasn't time yet, they could only wait outside. This wasn't an easy task. If they waited for too long, their hands and feet would become numb. Those who were older definitely couldn't bear it. However, generally speaking, those who were older would either have a husband or a son who was an important official. Naturally, they would receive preferential treatment. They would be directly welcomed into a warm room, warmed by a stove, and served with good tea and water. Compared to those who had to stand and wait outside, it was like heaven and earth. It was no wonder that many people desperately wanted to climb to a higher position. Not for anything else, but just this treatment was worth fighting for. Even if there weren't any ladies who were particularly close to her in the warm room, Jingwan basically knew them. As long as they didn't try to dig a hole in 2 out of 3 sentences, Jingwan was still willing to chat with them. Most of the princesses had to flatter Jingwan, not to mention those Junju whose fathers didn't have any real power. The ladies of the other important officials' families generally didn't have any conflicts with Jingwan. In addition, today was the first day of the new year, so there wouldn't be any blind people looking for trouble. A woman in palace attire walked to Jingwan's side. "Luo, third young lady, Gue Fei Nyongyong invites you." Jingwan nodded and bid farewell to the person beside her. Then, she left the warm room with the woman in palace attire. At this time, it was common for the palaces to summon those who were closer to them in advance. Some imperial concubines might only take this opportunity to see their maternal family throughout the year. Although the servants of each family couldn't enter the warm room, they still waited outside. This time, it was still Mama Gong who followed Jingwan into the palace. Now, no matter where she went, she naturally had to follow. The imperial palace had always been a place where evil was hidden. There was nothing wrong with being careful. However, the palace maid who led the way was very magnanimous. It seemed that there shouldn't be a problem. However, when Jingwan turned around the corridor of the palace hall and saw a certain person who seemed to be bored to death playing with flowers outside the corridor of another palace hall, should this be called a problem or not? The palace maid looked straight ahead and bowed to Li Hongyuan before leaving. She didn't call out to Jingwan at all. Her intention was obvious. After Mama Gong saw Li Hongyuan, she didn't follow and stood a little further away. Seeing the incomparably handsome man who had restrained his hostility and appeared to be detached from the world, Jingwan felt that it was more and more difficult for her to control this beauty. TSK, walking hormones, there was really no way around it. Jingwan stood up before walking to Li Hongyuan's side. Just as she was about to bow, Li Hongyuan was one step ahead and held her hand. Feeling that Jingwan's hand was slightly cold, he lightly frowned. "Why didn't you bring a hand warmer?" Jingwan was speechless. Dear Jean Qin Wang, this was the imperial palace, not her home. She wasn't a member of the imperial family. Holding a hand warmer, was it to show off your uniqueness and draw hatred? It's enough for you to draw hatred, don't drag others down. Li Hongyuan took off his cloak and draped it over Jingwan's body. Jingwan could clearly feel the warmth coming from the cloak. Glancing at it, there was an obvious layer of velvet inside. It was warm and light when draped over her body. Mu An immediately handed over a hand warmer. Li Hongyuan waited for her to settle down before opening his mouth. The wedding date is set on the 3rd of March. The first day of March? https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653328. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com Mobile Edition Reading Website. Bicken.com. Chapter 231. Shaanxi Festival? How could it be arranged on that day? You don't like it? Li Hongyuan's fingers gently brushed her cheek, which was similarly cold. No, it's not that. It was just that when it came to marriage, it seemed that they would usually choose a double date. It was a bit strange to choose a double date. However, this didn't matter to Jingwon. She herself wasn't that particular about it. Moreover, this date had been chosen and wasn't casually chosen. Would this bastard choose an inauspicious date to get married? However, if she said that she didn't care, he would definitely let people choose another date. However, it would only be brought forward and not pushed back. However, this wedding date was directly told to her like this? It seemed that her family didn't know about it yet. Do you want to walk? It will be cold if you stand here for a while. Lee Hongyuan lowered his head to take a look. She was wearing a special pair of shoes. To be exact, it was a small pair of leather boots. The inside was filled with velvet and the surface was decorated. Although it wouldn't be cold for a while, but if she didn't move around outside for a long time, she would definitely be as cold as ice. Jingwon wanted to say, Wang Yi, this is the palace, under the eyes of your father and mother, can't you be a bit more low-key? There were so many people in the warm room and they all heard that it was Su Guifei who wanted to see her. Now, using your adoptive mother as an excuse, was it really okay? However, looking at his expression, it seemed that in his eyes, there wasn't anything bad. Jingwon was discouraged. Lee Hongyuan saw Jingwon's helpless expression and his eyes overflowed with a smile. Let's go. Therefore, Jingwon followed Lee Hongyuan for a stroll, neither fast nor slow. Afterwards, she chatted and didn't avoid anything. Whether it was the palace people coming and going or the palace guards, they all clearly saw it. That cloak that was a bit too long for Jingwon, they didn't even need to look at the style to know who it belonged to. She didn't dare to say anything, but she couldn't help but mutter in her heart, was this really the unpredictable and ruthless Jean Wang? Those who didn't know would think that they were husband and wife taking a stroll, and the kind of husband and wife who had a very good relationship. Alright, third young Miss Luo's hairstyle that obviously belonged to a young lady clearly told everyone that they were not husband and wife. It had to be said that the palace had the most secrets and the most secrets, but there was nothing that could be hidden. Therefore, it spread the fastest. Even Lu Chengdi soon heard about it, let alone noble consort Su, who had been used. Jean Qin Wang did it confidently and confidently, without the slightest bit of guilt. Noble consort Su helplessly smiled, but a strange emotion that only she knew rose in her heart. As for other people's reactions, no one cared. In short, no one would call Jingwon to reprimand her. Hey, it's snowing. Jingwon suddenly realized that the snowflakes were falling bit by bit. This was naturally the first snow of this winter. In fact, the snow from a few days ago had not completely melted yet. Then let's go back. Jingwon nodded. She guessed that it was about time. While they were still halfway, Mu Gonggong quickly fetched an umbrella. Jingwon glanced at Mu Gonggong. She knew that you were a good lackey who wholeheartedly thought for your master, but you didn't need to be so attentive to her, okay? Your master was standing at the side. Was it really okay for you to openly rebel against your master? Lee Hongyuan took the umbrella and lightly glanced at Mu Gonggong. Although Mu Gonggong was attentive to Jingwon, he still kept his eyes and ears open. Seeing his master's eyes, he quivered. It seemed that he had accidentally gone overboard. Letting the third young miss notice him in front of his master, did he want to die, or did he want to die? He hurriedly shrank to one side. It wasn't like the two had never held an umbrella together before. In addition, there was a height difference between the two, so Jingwon didn't express that she wanted to hold the umbrella herself. Not to mention that it was tiring to hold the umbrella on her head was a bit short compared to Lee Hongyuan. It was a hindrance. When Lee Hongyuan sent Jingwon back, the people in the warm room just came out. Obviously, they were going to pay a New Year's visit to the Empress. Seeing the two coming together, many people were a little stunned. When Madame Luo greeted Lee Hongyuan, they all came to their senses and hurriedly saluted. Jingwon handed the hand warmer in her hand to Lee Hongyuan, and then took off the cloak on her body and returned it to him. Your Highness, you can go back. Lee Hongyuan looked at her, and their eyes met for a moment. In the end, he didn't refuse. He took the cloak, casually tied it, and then turned to leave. He walked away so decisively that the hem of the cloak flew in a big arc, so that his back looked a little cold, as if the gentleness just now was an illusion. Everyone's eyes fell on Jing-wan, and there was obviously curiosity and inquiry in their eyes. Jing-wan walked to Madame Luo's side with a calm expression. There was no need to explain this kind of thing. The more she explained, the worse it would be. It was better to not say anything, and turn around, forget all about it. Jing-wan was a girl, and had no rank, so naturally, she was with the other girls. Group by group, they entered the main hall of the Kunyi Palace. Inside, not only was the Empress in the main seat, the other concubines were also all present. They sat on the two sides, receiving everyone's greetings. At this time, not only was the Empress graceful and dignified, the others were also not far off. They sat with their hands crossed on their legs. Speaking of which, it had always been the children kneeling to their parents, and the younger generation kneeling to their elders. Only in the imperial family was this not the case. In the emperor's place, except for the direct elders, the other uncles and even granduncles had to kneel. In the imperial concubine's place, even the mother, father, grandfather, and grandmother had to kneel and kowtow. This was the imperial power. Ordinary people might not think much about it, but if it was a concubine's daughter who was not favored at home and was even tortured by her official mother, after entering the palace, she would be very happy when her official mother knelt at her feet. There would be no banquet in the palace today. After the collective greetings, they could basically go back to their own homes and get lost. In fact, Jing-wan was quite speechless about such a custom. What was the use of such torment and starvation? Those high-ranked concubines might be able to show their faces, but those low-ranked concubines could only kowtow outside. However, even so, Jing-wan still felt that many people were quite happy. That was right, it was deeply ingrained. Being able to enter the palace to pay respects was a kind of honor, showing one's status. In other words, many people wanted to suffer, but they did not have the chance. After everyone paid their respects, they chatted in twos and threes, and some people began to leave the palace. Jing-wan was about to leave the palace with Madame Luo when she was told that noble consort Su had invited her. Her feet paused. It seemed that this time, it was really noble consort Su who invited her. Jing-wan slightly lowered her eyes. Previously, when Jin Qin-wang asked people to call her away, noble consort Su would not know that he was borrowing her name. So, looking for her now, generally speaking, she would not let people say it directly. Now, there would probably be many people thinking that this Luo third young lady was really deeply liked by noble consort Su. This time, she really treated her like a treasure. As for whether it was sincere or sarcastic, noble consort Su was as gentle and amiable as always, saying that her son had a bad temper and was always willful and reckless. It was her, as a mother, who did not teach him well. She hoped that Luo third young lady would be more tolerant and so on. If he wanted to do something, just let him do it, there was no need to pay attention to him. Jing-wan responded with a smile on her face, but in her heart. Without a doubt, Jing-wan received a reward from noble consort Su. Leaving the palace, Jing-wan got on the carriage. Madame Luo was waiting for her. Seeing Jing-wan affectionately put the box on the small table, "Grandmother, let's go back." Madame Luo nodded. The coachman outside got the signal and waved the whip. The horse started to gallop. Madame Luo's face was like an ancient well without any ripples. Others may not be able to see it, but Jing-wan was very clear that her mood was not good. "Grandmother, don't be angry, nothing happened. What did noble consort Su say to you?" Jing-wan did not mind and roughly relayed noble consort Su's words. Madame Luo hooked her lips into a smile, but it was very cold. No matter if she was a real kind mother or a fake kind mother, Madame Luo knew that Jin Qin-wang was not a filial son. With his care for Wan, he would let others bully her for no reason. Jin Qin-wang probably would not do anything to her, but her own son, Rue Qin-wang, before His Majesty sealed his pen, Rue Qin-wang was in constant trouble. If someone said that there was no one behind his back, no one would believe it. As for who it was, some people felt that it was them. So when they saw Rue Qin Wang being unlucky, they were secretly happy. But in reality, since you touched his heart and liver, naturally, don't blame him for using a knife on your heart and liver. When Li Hongyuan learned of this matter, he was indeed very unhappy. That day, Luo Jingying sat in her own courtyard in a daze, watching the snowflakes that kept falling from the sky. There was no one around to serve her, so it was chilly. However, she did not care at all. In any case, her body was already damaged, so what if the cold air entered her body? There was no hope at all. Even if someone wanted her to take care of her body and give birth to a child, don't even think about it. She got pregnant on her first try, and it was even a male fetus. Just treat it as her giving birth well and not give any benefits. Let her give birth to a child, and treat it as giving her a great grace? Dream on. The servants in the courtyard were probably nestled in their rooms, warming themselves by the fire, eating and playing cards. A maidservant walked in front of Luo Jingying and gave her a hand warmer. Luo Jingying withdrew her gaze and looked at her face. Her eyes were like a pool of stagnant water. She held the hand warmer, and that warm feeling made people subconsciously yearn for it. I don't have any benefits here. If you want to curry favor, you've found the wrong place. The maidservant smiled unconcernedly. Does Shiqiang want to take revenge? Do you want to take revenge on that heartless man? Luo Jingying finally showed some expression, but her expression was still cold and even a little guarded. Shiqiang, you're making a scene in the backyard of the prince's mansion, but to Prince Rue, it's not a big deal. Princess Rue controls the prince's mansion very strictly, and she won't let the things in the backyard spread out. Prince Rue has been in trouble in the imperial court recently, so he's in a bad mood. Maybe your actions will completely anger him. He won't take your life, but he can drug you and make you dizzy all day long, so you can't even die. In addition, even if you're helping Princess Rue to a certain extent, when Prince Rue wants to deal with you, don't expect her to help you. After all, such a close servant died because of you. Do you think she'll be magnanimous enough to not hold a grudge? She won't go against her own husband. Who are you? Luo Jingying was even more guarded. Moreover, she did care about what she said. Shiqie, you don't need to know who I am. You just need to tell me whether you want to take revenge or not. It would be a lie to say that she didn't want to take revenge. She was so miserably deceived by Li Hongming. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't be in such a bad relationship with her family, and she would have a good marriage. She would be able to hold her head high and be his official wife. With the backing of the Minister of the Ministry of Personnel, no one in her family dared to be disrespectful to her. Now, she had nothing and could only wait for death. Prince Rue doesn't have a son now. Don't you want him to be without a son forever? Don't you want him to be heartbroken when he remembers that he should have had a son, but he lost it because of himself? The maid bewitched her. Luo Jingying's heart suddenly pounded. When Prince Rue gave up on her, she still had a glimmer of hope to redeem him. But the child was gone. Not only did it completely destroy her hope, but it also made her hate him. When she thought that he wouldn't have a son in his life, she inexplicably felt very happy in her heart. But, you can think of a way yourself. The maid chuckled. Don't you want to take revenge for your child? Shiqie, you know it yourself. If Prince Rue didn't act inappropriately, causing your pregnancy to be affected again and again, and in the end, deliberately letting others provoke you, would your child be gone? He is the culprit. Luo Jingying's eyes were full of hostility. She knew all of this. Those women were desperately using these things to attack her. Otherwise, she wouldn't hate Prince Rue to such an extent. Give it to me. The maid revealed a knowing smile. Oh, fortunately, she wasn't really hopelessly stupid. If she met someone who was stubborn no matter what, it would be really troublesome. But if she really was this kind of person, she probably wouldn't have chosen her. She put a small bag of medicine in Luo Jingying's hand. This medicine is colorless and tasteless. After taking it, there won't be any problems from the pulse, and there won't be any obvious signs of poisoning. At most, it'll be similar to a cold and dizzy for 2 days. So, Shiqie, You just need to be careful, and you won't be discovered. Luo Jingying's eyes lit up. She originally had the idea of perishing together. Since that was the case, she should live well and see him regret it. Ha ha ha, seeing her smile, the maid rubbed the goosebumps on her arms. This woman was really scary when she went crazy. It was better to leave quickly. It wouldn't be good if they were discovered. On the second day of the new year, it was time for the married grandmothers to return to their maternal families. Madame Wang and Madame Lu's maternal families were in the capital, so they naturally had to go back. However, Madame Zhang and Madame Wu's maternal families weren't there, so there was no need to specially leave someone to entertain them. Madame Zhang wasn't good at this aspect, but Madame Wu had been the housekeeper for a few years when she was in Qi and Manor. Although there weren't many social contacts at that time, and she was far inferior to Madame Wang in this aspect, it was more than enough to entertain her own family. Madame Zhang just needed to help on the side. As for the grandchildren, the two married grandmothers would definitely come back. Little Madame Wang's child was already more than 4 months old, so she would also bring the child with Madame Wang. As for Sun Yijia, firstly, she didn't want to go back to Duke Ding's manor. Secondly, she was about to give birth. If she gave birth early, she could have an attack at any time. Not to mention herself, no one in the Luo family would allow her to go out. Jingwan's courtyard was quite lively. Not only did the two married cousins come to her place, but the girls who went to other families also came to her place. Her eldest cousin's sister's temperament was actually somewhat similar to her mother, Madame Wang. They were both people who were very good at judging the situation. She was very clear about the attitude of the people in the Luo family. For example, she knew that Jingwan needed to be close to her. However, because she was a few years older than Jingwan and hadn't seen her for a few years, suddenly being too close to her was definitely not good. She could only do it step by step. For example, the good rouge and face powder that Jingwan sent her, as well as the shares of the Rouge Pavilion that she bought, she should express her gratitude to her. In this way, she would get closer to her step by step. Jingwan knew the rules inside. However, her eldest cousin's sister didn't have any bad intentions, so she could accept the way she did things and didn't dislike it. As they chatted and laughed, they didn't know how they got to the matter of entering the palace yesterday. Younger sister Wan, is it true that Her Majesty the Empress intends to let the second legitimate daughter of the Minister of Works be Prince Kang's step consort? Yuan Chaoqiao asked curiously. Who did you hear that from? I don't know. Jingwan said in surprise. My mother. I didn't follow her into the palace yesterday. My mother said that Her Majesty the Empress kept that girl. I don't know about that. Later on, I went to see Her Highness the noble consort. If that's really the case, then it's a pity that the girl is betrothed to Prince Kang. Didn't they say that although Prince Kang's life was saved, his body was damaged? Who knows what will happen in the future? That girl isn't much older than you. Don't listen to hearsay. Prince Kang is a prince, so the heavens will protect him. Who knows when he'll recover? Sun Yijia said with a smile. She used a skewer to pick up a piece of fruit. It had been specially heated and preserved in autumn. It wasn't easy. Yuan Chaoqiao made a face at Sun Yijia, and then expressed that she wouldn't say anything more. Everyone else laughed along with her. However, Jingwan felt that it was very likely that Her Majesty the Empress would take a fancy to the Minister of Works' daughter. Compared to the other 5 ministers, the Minister of Works had a great advantage in age. The others were all in their 50s or 60s, but he was less than 40. He could be said to be young and promising. Although he wasn't as powerful and influential as the ministers of the Ministry of Personnel and the Ministry of Revenue, his future was limitless. To be honest, in terms of status, that girl was more honorable than Jingwan. Not to mention the second princess consort, she could even be the first princess consort. Based on what Jingwan learned from her grandfather, this Minister of Works didn't seem to be a neutral person. However, who he was loyal to was debatable. As for Prince Kang's health, whether it was good or bad, it wasn't known for the time being during the new year. After the 15th, it would be clear based on the movements in the imperial court. https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/6653330. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.beacon.com. Biku Gur mobile reading website: beacon.com. Chapter 232. 2 days later, it was said that Prince Rue got sick, and it seemed to have started on the first night of the Spring Festival. His Majesty had stopped writing, but during the Spring Festival, all the princes who had been conferred the title of prince would go to the palace every day. Even the married princesses went to the palace more frequently, so that Lu Chengdi, who was rarely free, could enjoy the joy of family reunion. Although Lu Chengdi disliked Li Hongming recently, he had always valued his son, so he would not say those annoying things during the Spring Festival. In fact, Prince Rue was a little relieved. But he fell ill inexplicably, which was not a bad thing for Li Hongming. Princess Lu took the child to the palace. She was obviously tired, but she still forced a smile. Lu Chengdi frowned and asked. Princess Lu seemed to be very relaxed and understated. "Father, I'm sorry to make you worry. Prince Rue is fine, just a little cold." Prince Rue also wants to go to the palace to serve father, but he is worried that he will be sick, and that he will be unfilial to father, concubines, and other relatives. Noble consort Su asked a few more questions at the right time. "I saw that Ming-a was fine before the Spring Festival. You have always been a virtuous woman, so you can take care of him well. Why did he catch a cold so easily?" She was also a little worried. Princess Lu frowned inadvertently. "It's my fault. But Prince Rue hasn't been to the backyard for a long time. He goes back to the front study every day. I can only send someone to ask. Sometimes Prince Rue doesn't go to bed until very late." To put it more simply, mental and physical exhaustion was the main cause of his illness. Imperial consort Su quickly rubbed the corners of her eyes and reprimanded. "You can't be blamed for this. It's just that scoundrel clearly knows that it's the festive period of the new year. Instead of resting, he's looking for trouble. His Majesty has already sealed his brush, so what could he possibly be busy with? He is so unfilial. He is not worthy of being a son. It's time to teach him a lesson." "My dear, you are too serious. He is sick. As his mother, you don't care about him. How can you say that he is wrong? Call 2 more imperial physicians to take a good look at him and recover as soon as possible. That bastard asked for it. Your Majesty, why do you care about him? You'll know what's good for you next time." Lu Chengdi was amused. "How can I leave him be? After the 15th day of the lunar year, he still has to share my worries. He'll be busy." I was too shallow. Lu Chengdi then rewarded them with many good herbs and asked Princess Lu to take care of him at home. He knew they were being filial, but it would not be too late for them to do so after he recovered. The others watched as the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law worked together to dissolve Li Hongming's bad impression in Lu Chengdi's mind. Imperial concubine Su didn't hesitate to point out the things that could be used against her. What else could the others say? Well, it was better to make him half dead than to be killed by someone else. Everyone knew the twists and turns, but there was no chance for them to speak. After all, Lu Chengdi loved his son dearly. If he tried the same trick on someone else who was not favored, he might be reprimanded. Originally, many people were secretly delighted when they saw that Li Hongming made frequent mistakes and was reprimanded again and again, which made Lu Chengdi angry. However, before they could do anything, he turned the tables. How could they not be angry? They didn't expect that Li Hongming would play the trick of injuring himself to gain sympathy at this critical moment and play the emotional card. Yes, few people believed that Li Hongming really caught a cold. It was most likely that he did it on purpose. It was because he chose such a special time that it was unexpected. Li Hongyuan looked on coldly. He had restrained his temper recently and was being a good son. Lu Chengdi was still wondering why he changed his temper. As a result, Li Hongyuan didn't give him a good face, which made him feel at ease. It was just a cold. Who would suspect anything? If nothing happened in a few months, after a year, when there was no movement in the backyard of Prince Rui's mansion, people would naturally be anxious. At first, they might not have any doubts about Prince Rui, but when there was no movement from the pregnant woman, then Li Hongming had never paid much attention to children. He always thought that he could have as many children as he wanted after he ascended the throne. If he knew that he couldn't have children, how much energy would he spend on the court and how much energy would he spend on having children? These days at the beginning of the year, it was just relatives and friends visiting each other. After the 6th day of the year, it was almost time for the people below to visit him. Naturally, it was necessary to build relationships. Naturally, the Luo family was much livelier than in previous years. The busiest one was probably Madame Wang, who asked her to be in charge of the family affairs. She had to deal with all aspects properly. She was the wife of the head of the household, and this was also a must. If she really gave up the power in her hands for the sake of her leisure, she would most likely be unhappy in her heart. Not only her, but every family would be the same. However, her sisters-in-law basically didn't fight with her for power and didn't secretly make things difficult for her, which saved her a lot of trouble. She should thank the heavens. It was really sullen to work hard and still have a stomach full of anger. When the visits to relatives and friends came to an end, starting from the 11th or 12th day, every household began to hang up lanterns one after another. Many high-ranking officials and nobles also began to build lanterns, lighthouses, and lampstands in the streets near Wandeng-lu. And starting from the 13th day, the Lantern Festival began. From the 15th day until the 13th day, the lanterns were brightly lit for 3 consecutive nights. At the same time, every household began to send lanterns. The only newly married daughter of the Luo family was Luo Jingqiang. She wasn't as lucky as Sun Yijia, who was pregnant at the beginning of her marriage. However, not long ago, it was normal for a married girl to not be pregnant for 1 or 2 years. However, because of Sun Yijia, Luo Jingqiang was probably still a little anxious in her heart. Fortunately, a pregnancy pulse was diagnosed a few days ago. And almost the day after that, the eldest daughter, Luo Jingshu, also sent good news that she was pregnant with a second child. This was naturally a happy event for the Luo family. The 2 families each sent a pair of large palace lanterns, a pair of colored glazed lanterns, and 2 pairs of small lanterns, hoping that they would have a safe pregnancy. As for whether the Luo family had infertile relatives or friends who sent lanterns as a sign of good fortune, Jingwan didn't know. And Sun Yijia naturally also received lanterns from Duke Ding's mansion, which were sent by old Madame Sunday. On the 15th day, not only the younger generation went out that night, almost the whole family went out. However, it was a pity that Sun Yijia still couldn't go out. It was about the next few days. That little guy could come out at any time. Luo Jingbua was naturally left behind. He didn't care. It would be better if he brought his wife and child with him next year. And Emperor Lu Chengdi would also come out tonight, bringing the concubines, unmarried princesses, and unmarried princes to have fun with the people. After eating all kinds of glutinous rice balls, Jingwan dressed up like the elders. The route was different from the last Mid-Autumn festival. From the beginning, it was to avoid all kinds of diseases. No matter if the women were married or unmarried, they would walk together and cross the bridge when they saw it. As the saying goes, crossing the bridge to avoid danger and prevent diseases to prolong life. In the capital, except for some small bridges, there were probably only bridges on the river beside the 10,000 Lanterns Tower and on the moat. Because the 10,000 Lanterns Tower was in the city, it was far away from the moat on any side. Except for those who lived close to the moat, probably no one would deliberately walk there. However, because there were many women in the noble families, for a long time, both sides of the river were directly cleared. In order to avoid colliding with each other, the route was basically fixed. Jingwan held old Madame Luo's arm, and the rest of the Luo family next to her. They slowly moved forward with the big group, and it even felt like they were rubbing shoulders. In more than 10 years in Qi Yuan, this was the first time Jing Yuan came into contact with such a dense crowd. Of course, it was not as scary as some special environments in her previous life. However, if they walked too fast, old Madame Luo's body wouldn't be able to take it. This was like a stroll, but it was just right. They walked a total of 5 bridges, and it took them about 2 hours. After crossing the bridge, the elders chased away the younger generation. They would either invite them to continue strolling or find a place to sit and chew their teeth. It was their own pleasure. The most lively thing tonight was naturally the various performances. Dragon lanterns, lion dances, stilts walking, rowing, these were the most basic. There were also acrobatics, opera performances, and everything else. Everywhere they walked, it was abnormally lively. On the lanterns and lampstands of the various families, there were also performances. Compared to the performances organized by the common people, these performances were naturally more beautiful. It should be known that all the opera troupes in the capital were booked, and all of them were performing at the same time tonight. And, in this way, it was simply a different kind of competition. The troupe with the most people watching in front of them would naturally be the most popular. The final result was likely to directly affect the business of the troupe for the year. Jing Yuan was not very interested in opera, and she was basically stuck at the level where she could understand it. Yuan Qiao pulled her around 1 street, 2 streets, and 3 streets. In her hand, Yuan Qiao forced a lantern into her hand. Yuan Qiao seemed to be particularly fond of the folks' acrobatics. She was in high spirits and walked faster than Jing Yuan. Then, she accidentally got separated. However, Jing Yuan was not worried. After all, there was always someone by her side. Jing Yuan stood in place with the lantern and laughed. She is really full of energy. If such a person was always restrained by rules and regulations, she would definitely be very uncomfortable. Jing Yuan felt that this cousin would be very fond of the environment of her previous life. There were so many fun things, and no one would care about how she played. Jing Yuan jumped when her waist was suddenly wrapped around. She unconsciously turned her head and saw who it was. Jing Yuan patted her chest. "Your Highness, you can scare people to death. Can you not suddenly attack me?" Thinking about it, no one would do such a bad thing except for her. Moreover, Nurse Gong and the black and white beauties were there. Normal people would not be able to get close to her. Li Hongyuan laughed and scratched her nose. "You're so timid?" "It's not a matter of being timid. It was a biological reflex." "Alright, it's my fault. How do you want me to apologize?" "There's no need for an apology. It's not that serious. Your Highness, just don't scare me next time." "There won't be a next time," Li Hongyuan promised her. Then, Jing Yuan noticed that many people around them were secretly looking at them. Only then did she realize that he was still holding her waist. It was because she was used to this kind of intimacy in private that she didn't think of avoiding him at this time. Her face was a little red. "Your Highness, let go of me first." Even if these people did not know them, being looked at with accusatory eyes still made her feel very uncomfortable. At times like this, she really missed her previous life. Li Hongyuan did not make things difficult for her. "You should have been gone for a long time, right? Are you hungry? Let's go get something to eat." Jing Yuan nodded. It was really a bit disgusting. Using his wide sleeves as cover, Li Hongyuan took Jing Yuan's hand and rubbed it with his fingers. Compared to Jing Yuan's delicate and smooth hands, Li Hongyuan practiced martial arts all year round. He drew bows and arrows and used all kinds of weapons. Naturally, his hands were much rougher. However, this roughness was not enough to scratch her skin. It was a bit numb. Jing Yuan struggled, but she couldn't break free. "Wan, this is the bottom line," Li Hongyuan said neither lightly nor heavily. Jing Yuan was speechless. Meeting such a domineering and unreasonable guy, what else could she do but compromise? Oh, Jing Yuan actually saw a street full of snacks. Moreover, it was this noble prince who brought her here. It would be a lie to say that she was not surprised. Jing Yuan originally thought that he would take her to a big restaurant nearby. Although this place was just next to the hall, it was relatively quiet. Moreover, looking at the people coming and going, she knew that they were all ordinary people. As the saying goes, everyone follows the crowd. Due to the difference in social status, there was no rich person coming here. Naturally, there would not be a trend. People of their class did not know about it. Even if they knew, it was normal that they would not come. There is a restaurant here that sells delicious yuan shao, Li Hongyuan said. Jingwan did not ask how he knew. Since we are already here, let's try the other things? In her previous life, Jingwan was born in a rich family. Before her family fell, she could be considered as a member of the upper class. Naturally, she had not eaten food from roadside stalls. However, later on, she had tried it. Some of the food was still not bad. Li Hongyuan frowned slightly. He did not think that these things were not good. After all, in his previous life, there were times when he could not be picky. However, in this life, his food and clothing were the best. In addition, it was not necessary. He really did not like these things. However, when he saw Jingwan's pleading eyes shining under the light, he could not bear to refuse. In the end, he nodded. Just try it. Don't eat too much. Jingwan quickly nodded. Of course, I will just try it. This street did not look short. There were a lot of things. Even if she only bought some, it was unrealistic to eat from the street all the way to the end. Jingwan excitedly began to choose. The first thing she looked at was naturally the hygiene. She would definitely skip those that did not pass. Her stomach had been carefully cultivated for more than 10 years. It was estimated that it was already very delicate. If she ate anything that was not clean, the chances of her stomach getting a stomachache were too high. Speaking of which, these small vendors would occasionally see people who were dressed luxuriously. At first glance, they could tell that they were not ordinary people. However, they would often show a look of disgust. Even if they wanted to try something new, they would frown and pout. Sometimes, they would spit it out in one mouthful. Not only would they not pay, they would also smash the stall. As a commoner, they did not even have a place to complain. If they only smashed the stall, it would be considered good. If they beat up the stall, it would not be worth it. Based on the above, in fact, these people would not be happy to meet ordinary people. Instead, they would be worried. Especially when there was a delicate young lady who did not eat the sufferings of the world. They might not have bad intentions, but they would always inadvertently bring trouble to others. Therefore, when she saw Jingwan came forward. She did not dare to boast. Instead, she was nervous. Jingwan was a little puzzled. However, she did not say anything. She directly bought a portion and let the maidservant pay directly. Then, she would taste it. If it was delicious, she would eat more. If it was not delicious, she would let the maidservant hold it. In this way, she bought and ate at the same time. Occasionally, she would let a certain prince have a taste. Seeing that his face was full of disgust, but because she was stubborn or wanted to tease him, she would feed it to him. Every time, Li Hongyuan reluctantly ate it. Jingwan laughed very happily. There were only a few people who could make this prince compromise. Jingwan felt a sense of achievement. Perhaps it was because they saw that the people in front of them had sold their things and didn't attract any trouble. Some of the people in the back became a little bolder. When Jingwan came closer, they would even call out in a low voice. Speaking of which, when Jingwan bought it like this, it really brought about some small changes. For example, there was a kind of follower mentality in the world. Ordinary people, when they saw that kind of rich people bought it, they could not help but want to try it. And when she did not buy it, it would make people subconsciously feel that it was not good. Then, they noticed that she took 1 bite and some took 2 bites. Usually, she would only let the man eat it after she took 2 bites. Did this mean that it was delicious? Then they bought it and tasted it. And it was really not bad. As expected of someone from a rich family, it was amazing. So much so that the small vendors who discovered this situation became bolder. They all hoped that their own things would be fancied. Because it was the Lantern Festival, there were naturally many people selling lantern dumplings. When they arrived at Li Hongyuan's lantern dumpling stall, the entire street was almost empty. Jingwan was almost 70% full at this time. Regardless of the fact that Jean Qinhuang had specially made a trip for this stall, she still wanted to try it. In fact, the tables and stools were wiped very clean. The same was true for other things. So she sat down and just happened to rest her feet. Soon, a small bowl of lantern dumplings was served. It was small and exquisite. Jingwan tasted one. Her eyes slightly brightened. It was really good. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653334. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website. Bicken.com. Chapter 233. Jingwan subconsciously covered her mouth and then looked around. This place was relatively remote and there weren't many people, so no one noticed them. The people following behind them all looked down and pretended not to see anything. Jingwan finally let out a sigh of relief and glared at this increasingly unscrupulous bastard who didn't care about the occasion. Li Hongyuan looked at her with a gentle expression and gentle eyes. Wan, don't be angry. I just couldn't control myself for a moment. Jingwan had an expression that said, I'd be a fool to believe you. No, even if it was like this, he couldn't do it like this, bastard. As expected, the wedding date was set too late. Li Hongyuan seemed to sigh helplessly. Your Highness should be glad that you are a favored prince. Jingwan said through gritted teeth. If he wasn't favored, even if he was a prince, with his grandfather's status, he could delay her marriage until she was 16 years old. It wouldn't be like now, where everything was in the palm of this bastard's hand and there was no room for negotiation. Wan, you really don't want to marry me? Li Hongyuan's eyes seemed to be a little hurt. Jingwan pursed her lips and didn't say anything. This guy was really good to her. In a feudal dynasty where imperial power was supreme, there weren't many people who could be this good to her. Although he had a bad reputation, after he was engaged to her, there didn't seem to be any unbearable rumors. She was the one who chose him, so she naturally wouldn't refuse to marry. She just didn't want to marry so early. Wan, you really don't want to marry? Li Hongyuan's deep affection was tinged with a bit of coldness. Was this the rhythm of falling out at the slightest disagreement? No, it should be blackening. He wasn't a good person to begin with. His heart, liver, and lungs were all black. If he blackened even more, wouldn't he become like ink from head to toe, inside and out? Your Highness, you're thinking too much. It's definitely not like that. Jingwan hurriedly promised. But a certain person's face was dark, as if he didn't believe Jingwan's words at all. Jingwan wanted to cover her face. When this bastard was nice to her, she had nothing to say, but when his temper flared up, it was hard to coax him. If she didn't coax this bastard now, she would probably suffer tonight. Suddenly, she grabbed him by the collar and stood on her tiptoes. I'll give you a taste of your own medicine. She let go of him, turned around, and left in a hurry. Damn it, she was too ashamed to face anyone. Li Hongyuan touched his lips with a smile in his eyes. He was slowly getting to know Jingwan's temper better and better. Most of the time, she was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. However, it was not a problem to be forceful occasionally. However, he could not go too far. If he provoked her temper, she would probably fight with him to the end. Therefore, it was not useless to have people secretly keep an eye on him for years. At least, he understood Jingwan faster than Jingwan understood him. And Jingwan, who could not figure out his temperament, must have compromised more times. She continued to stroll slowly on the lantern street. There were so many dazzling and colorful performances that it made people clap their hands and praise. Selectively, she forgot what happened just now. Here, of course, was not as remote as in other places. From time to time, she could meet people she knew. But because of Li Hongyuan's prestige, people usually avoided her in advance unless they accidentally met him face to face. This reduced Jingwan's embarrassment. Not to mention other things, even if they just deliberately glanced at her and said a few words, it was enough to make her uncomfortable. Unconsciously, she walked to the Thousand Lanterns Tower. She arrived at the right time and happened to see hundreds of people dancing together. They were not women's light movements, nor were they enchanting. Instead, they were men. They were holding torches, heroic and heroic. They changed their formation quickly and powerfully. In the blink of an eye, they even built a human tower with 3 or 4 floors. They jumped down and lit a huge water tank, which turned out to be wine. The cheers were endless. "Your Highness, His Majesty wants to see you," Eunuch Mu said calmly behind Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan looked back and glanced at the palace servants who were standing outside the guards. They were the servants of Emperor Lu Chengdi. When they saw Li Hongyuan looking at them, they hurriedly put on a flattering smile. They had no choice. This master was their ancestor. They had to serve him well. Li Hongyuan withdrew his gaze. "Wan, I can't accompany you tonight. It's not early now. Why don't you go back and rest early?" His father rarely went out to have fun with the people. In the past few years, he had nothing to do, so he just spent time on the side. The other brothers also did the same. This year, he had been absent all the time. Compared to him, some people felt unaccustomed. Jingwan didn't know what was going on. She just nodded. She had been out for a long time. She guessed that her grandmother and others had already gone back. "Your Highness, please go. I'll go back in a while." Li Hongyuan nodded and turned to leave. However, the palace servant obviously glanced at Jingwan. He wanted to say something but hesitated. Li Hongyuan also glanced at him. Then, he ignored him and walked away. The palace servant couldn't help but tremble. He didn't dare to say anything and followed Li Hongyuan's guards. Jingwan also realized that he was going to ask her to go with him. However, since he stopped her, Jingwan was quite happy. Whether it was the emperor or a concubine, Jingwan didn't want to see them. Seeing them made her tense and uncomfortable at all times. In this case, she'd better go back early. Therefore, Jingwan didn't look up even though she knew that those people were at Wandeng Tower. The performance was coming to an end. After watching it, she walked back slowly. At Wandeng Tower, Li Hongyuan saw Emperor Lu Chengdi. He took off his cloak and Eunuch Mu hurriedly took it. Li Hongyuan walked to Emperor Lu Chengdi. "This son greets Imperial Father." Emperor Lu Chengdi glanced at him. "Your wife didn't come up?" "Imperial Father, please be careful with your words. This son and Miss Luo haven't married yet. Don't tarnish her reputation." Emperor Lu Chengdi almost vomited blood. Who was the ghost who hadn't seen his wife for 8 lifetimes? It was because of his suppression and the reputation of this vile creature, Gue Jianchou, that no rumors had spread. But now, he was actually making false accusations? Sure enough, he shouldn't have asked him to come. He was asking for it. "Get out. I don't want to see you." Li Hongyuan glanced at Emperor Lu Chengdi as if to say, "Since you don't want to see him, why did you ask him to come? You're simply making trouble for no reason." Emperor Lu Chengdi magically understood at that moment. Because he understood, he felt even more depressed. Why did he raise such an unfilial son? He and Wanru were obviously not like this. Who did this bastard take after? Li Hongyuan was considerate this time. He didn't really leave but sat down next to Emperor Lu Chengdi. Emperor Lu Chengdi obviously snorted with disdain, but didn't say anything. The performance was wonderful, and the other princes and ministers were occupied with it. Who knew what the father and son were talking about and doing, right? As soon as Jingwan returned home, she was told that her sister-in-law's son Ijia had a relapse. She was stunned at first, and then immediately came to her senses. She had expected it. Even today, it was not strange. After all, the 15th day of the first lunar month was a good day. The little guy really knew how to pick the time. However, it was said that the first baby was relatively slow. Today was almost over, so the possibility of the baby being born today was not big. The little guy should be born a little earlier. The old maid guarding the door told her at this time, probably to please her. Jingwan was not stingy and asked the maid to reward her directly. The old maid smiled from ear to ear. When did sister-in-law have a relapse? Third young lady, not long after you went out, third young madam had a relapse. In this way, she didn't send anyone to inform them. Everything was ready. Without them, there would be no hindrance. She wouldn't give birth for a while. The couple probably thought so too. Jingwan didn't go back to the Haitang house to change clothes. She went directly to the yard next door. Outside the delivery room, the female elders were all there. Luo Jingbua kept walking in circles outside the door, looking very nervous. However, Jingwan was shocked by son Ijia's cry. Wasn't it just a short time? Why did she cry so hard? What would happen when the baby was born? Or was it really very painful at this time? Wan is back. Grandmother, sister-in-law is... Wah wah wah. Before Jingwan finished a sentence, she heard a loud cry. Was she giving birth? Jingwan was really stunned. She gave birth, she gave birth. Everyone was very happy. Madame Luo also stood up at once. Then, she saw Jingwan in a daze and couldn't help but pinch her face. What's wrong? She gave birth. Isn't it said that the first child is slow? Jingwan said subconsciously, looking like she was still in a daze. You silly child. Madame Luo couldn't help but pinch her again. It varies from person to person. Your sister-in-law is so fast. Although it's rare, it's not unheard of. Besides, if she gives birth quickly, she will suffer less. Isn't it good? Jingwan finally came back to her senses. Of course it's good. The sooner the better. She also showed a sincere smile of joy. Mother, if you ask me, this child has a special fate with third young lady. Didn't third young lady come out as soon as she was born? Didn't she come out to see her biological aunt? Wang Shi said with a smile. That's right. Isn't that the case? When she was in her mother's womb, this aunt worried a lot. Although Jingwan didn't care about such words, she was quite happy now. The midwife quickly came out with the properly treated child and opened the door. Congratulations, Madame Luo. Third young madam has given birth to a little daughter. When she said this, although she was smiling, she looked at Madame Luo with a little caution. Good, good, good. You will be rewarded. Madame Luo took the child with a smile and weighed it. It's quite heavy. Seeing that Madame Luo was not unhappy, the midwife's smile became more sincere. If this family didn't like girls, they might be angry. Yes, the child is 92 pounds. Obviously, the midwife thought too much. With Jingwan as a precedent, not to mention Madame Luo, even the entire second branch would not dislike son Ijia for giving birth to a daughter. They might even like her more and dote on her more. Even son Ijia herself said that she wanted a child like her aunt. Jingwan did a little calculation. Qi yuan was also 16 ounces per catty, but she estimated that it was more than 600 grams per catty. In this way, according to the calculation in her previous life, this child should be more than 8 catties, maybe close to 9 catties. Jingwan couldn't help but feel a little shocked and a little scared. This was obviously a little big. In this era where one careless mistake could lead to the death of 2 people, sometimes it would be better to have a smaller child. Where's my sister-in-law? How is she? Yes. Where's Ijia? How is Ijia? Luo Jingbua also hurriedly asked. Jingwan glanced at him. Her body was still a little tense, and it seemed that she just came back to her senses. Third young mistress gave birth smoothly. There won't be any problems. This old woman has been delivering babies for so many years, and this is the first time that third young mistress has had such a smooth delivery. Luo Jinghua sighed. That's good. Jingwan also felt relieved. If something happened to the adults, it would be really. Madame Luo handed the child to Luo Jinghua. There was a saying that a man would carry a grandchild but not a child, but she didn't do that. This is your daughter. Hug her properly and be close to her. Don't be like your old man who doesn't act like a father. Luo Jinghua was at a loss. He didn't know how to hug her. On the other hand, Madame Zhang, who wanted to hug her granddaughter, was at a loss. Her husband didn't act like a father, and she didn't act like a mother either. But at this time, no one was paying attention to her. Everyone's attention was on the child. Madame Luo carefully adjusted Luo Jinghua's posture and slapped his arm. Relax. The child will be uncomfortable if you're too stiff. It's still cold, and the swaddling clothes are thick. If it's summer, you can't carry the child like this. Luo Jinghua also wanted to relax, but the problem was that this was not something he could control. Third brother, let me hug her. Jingwan also felt a little itchy. Madame Luo took the child and handed it to Jingwan. It wasn't that Jingwan had never carried a child before, but this was the first time that she was carrying a newborn, so she was very careful and didn't make any mistakes. The little guy opened his eyes. Jingwan looked at the child and said in surprise, "It seems that this child really likes you, his biological aunt, the most." Of course. Jingwan couldn't help but feel proud. After the room was cleaned up, Jingwan and the others went in to take a look. Sun Yijia was awake and seemed to be in good spirits. When Luo Shongshu returned to the Fu, he was very happy to know that he had a great-granddaughter. The next day, all the servants in the Fu received another reward. This was what Luo Jinghua and Sun Yijia had agreed on. They didn't necessarily need to express their concern for the child in such a way. Moreover, the child was a girl. No matter how their own family members saw it, in the eyes of outsiders, she was definitely not as noble as Sun Jinji, the eldest son of the eldest son. Even if the child was a boy, he would probably be considered inferior. If it was too grand, it would instead attract gossip. Moreover, the child was born at a good time. If the child's fortune was too great, it was best to keep a low profile. After the Lantern Festival, the inside and outside of the imperial court became busy again. Whether this undercurrent was surging or not, it had nothing to do with Jingwan and the others. On the second day of the second month, the dragon raises its head. At the same time, it was also Jingwan's birthday. She was 15 years old. According to reason, it should be done once, but Jingwan refused. She would be married in a month. The person she was marrying was a prince. At that time, it would be very grand. There was really no need to be extravagant now. It was simply extravagant and wasteful. Therefore, she didn't even invite her relatives and friends. She just held a small celebration for her own family. Jingwan received gifts from her relatives. Other people aside, Li Hongyuan's gift would definitely not be lacking. Jingwan expressed that her small storeroom was almost full. Jin Qinwang, can you take it easy? When the time comes, these things will have to follow her. Moving things will also be very tiring. A certain person turned a deaf ear. On the 15th day of the second household's eldest granddaughter's 1 month old. Similarly, it was just a small celebration. The little guy was already wrinkled at the beginning and had grown white and tender. She also gained a lot of weight. Her small hands and feet were like lotus roots. She looked very cute and strong. Little Wangshe was very envious. When my child was 1 month old, she was far worse than this little guy. That child was just born a little worse. If she is raised well, there will definitely be no problem. The next day, Jin Qinwang and Jingwan sent betrothal gifts. Generally speaking, the prospective bridegroom would personally send betrothal gifts to the female side. As a descendant of the heavenly crown, they would basically not personally send betrothal gifts. However, Li Hongyuan did so. The betrothal gifts and the Nikkei were basically fixed. However, on the Nikkei, Li Hongyuan did a good deed. No one thought that he would stop this time. Jingwan could only hope that he would restrain himself a little. However, when Jingwan saw the things, sure enough, she was still too naive. In Jin Qinhuang's dictionary, there were no such words as low-key and restrain. This time, Li Hongyuan did not find trouble with the Imperial Household Department. However, with the previous example, the Imperial Household Department did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. The things they used were the best. The quantity, other than the hard and fast rules, was doubled according to the last time. In the end, these things were sent to Jin Qinhuang Fu. Obviously, Li Hongyuan was preparing to send the gifts from his own Wang Fu. The entire street where the Luo family was located, from the end of the street to the end, was filled with boxes tied with red silk. Looking at the gait of the people carrying the boxes, one would know that the contents were definitely solid. Some of the things that were not suitable to be put into the boxes looked ordinary. The most unusual ones were probably those 2 golden deer. Their skin was smooth and glossy, and their antlers looked sturdy and strong. It must be said that when the betrothal gifts were sent to the families of high officials and nobles, they would only use deerskin as a gift. Should it be said that Jin Qinhuang was indeed worthy of being called Jin Qinhuang, such a big hand. When all the things were lined up in the front yard of the Luo family, they were packed to the brim, stacking up to 2 or 3 layers high. The 4 Quan Fu Furins who came to send the betrothal gifts were all Li Hongyuan's elders. If they were not Qin Wang Fei, then they were Jun Wang Fei. When old Madame Luo saw this, the corners of her mouth twitched. When she received the list of gifts from the matchmaker, she flipped through it page by page. Old Madame Luo really wanted to ask Li Hongyuan, "In your eyes, did our family treat Wan so harshly? Are you sending the betrothal gifts, or are you directly giving our family's granddaughter a dowry?" With these things, other than the furniture and the dowry, the Luo family did not need to prepare anything else. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653336. HTML. Click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book: www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website. Bicken.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.